Good
Councilman
evening,
Howard,
everyone.
We are live and recording.
Thank you so much, Phil. Good evening, everyone. We're going to start. Time is now 5:01. We're going to start the Warwick Finance Committee. First is acceptance of minutes. There is none, so now we'll go right to PCR. Well, before we do that, I am going to call on the solicitor, Mr. Walsh, to go ahead and read off. As you know, we voted on some rule changes, a new way to address the bids and the PCR. And Councilman Walsh, if you wouldn't mind reading those and guiding us through that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is for, as the chairman noted, really for the education, anyone who's tuning in tonight who may not have been at a prior council meeting where rules changes were discussed. The council adopted PCR 4020 sub A, which addressed varying rule changes as it relates to the consent calendar, under which we traditionally review all of our bids that come in at the Finance Committee. Rule 13 has been amended to read as follows. Rule 13, consent calendar procedure, section A. For each committee that has consent calendar items before it, the committee will vote on all said consent calendar items before it as a whole, rather than each item separately. However, any member of the council may exercise a right to remove an item from the consent calendar prior to said vote, so that the item may be discussed and received an individual recommendation by the committee. All items totaling more than $50,000 will be automatically discussed and received a recommendation by the committee. The purpose of this rule is to ensure meeting efficiency without sacrificing any oversight by the council, and also to encourage members of the council to ask questions of department heads before meetings. For the sake of the meeting process tonight, we're going to try and follow, as I'm sure others are aware, how the school committee has addressed this issue in the past. Any member is eligible to ask a question on any item on the agenda, but we're going to be treating the docketed bid package PCR 5921 as a whole. And so comments can be raised about varying items within the package on the varying bids that are contained therein at any time. You do not have to have an item removed for the purposes of discussion, but at the end of the day, there'll be a vote on the consent calendar, the bid package itself, PCR 5921, and all the items that are on it. And if there's anything that is going to be removed at the request of any member, that item will be addressed separately. So if there's an item on the bid package that a member wishes to see a PCR addressed to it, that's it, under the new rule that is still available for any member of the council, not just the committee, to request such. But the process that this council is looking to adopt moving forward is to highlight the items of most concern and address those items until there are no further questions. As it relates to members of the public, yes, you will still be able to speak on all these items. After discussion with the chairman, we found it was appropriate to, when an individualized item is brought up, let's try and debate all those items and ask all questions at that time on that item. And if there's any other questions from the public, we will take it following members of the council. At the end of the discussions, there'll be one last opportunity to provide any questions or comments on the bid package as a whole prior to a vote on it. And then on any item that's removed from the consent docket, we will address in a similar manner on an individualized nature as we're well accustomed. And just for the purposes of everyone's awareness tonight, the $50,000 threshold, there are two items on tonight's bid package that trigger that threshold. That's bid number 2022-009 and bid 2022-022. So we will be looking for presentations from those department heads and individualized attention. Just a reminder that those items remain as part of it unless being requested to be dealt with differently. So the assumption is items that remain on the bid package would be viewed as part of likely favorable action as historically has been done, but it would still require those formalized votes at that later time. And so before I just defer to the chairman and anyone for questions about process, And we appreciate everyone bearing with us as we kind of work through this new structure that we're adopting to try and see how best this streamlines our evenings. So
Thank you.
I'll turn it back over.
All right, so would it be appropriate then, Solicitor, if I went ahead and for items number 4 and item number 13, since they were above the threshold, maybe bring those right to the front, open those up individually, and then would that be maybe the smart, appropriate way to do it?
It seems reasonable to me, sir.
Okay. Questions from members of the committee on the rule changes? Nope. Okay. Councilman Lattiser.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Who is going to be the gatekeeper or the timekeeper on the 10-minute rule?
That I can take care of that. I think that would fall under the chairman's responsibility.
Okay.
Yep.
All righty.
Thank you.
And
So I would ask the
that,
committee. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I figure it's worth the same announcement as it relates to changes to other rules. As it relates to Rule 20, if you want me to talk about the 10-minute rule so people are aware of what has been changed.
Please.
Under the revised Rule 20, any citizen of the city of Warwick may request to be heard on any docketed resolution or ordinance prior to passage by the council. Upon receipt of such request, the council president shall refer the requesting citizen to the committee which the proposed resolution or ordinance has been referred, and the citizen shall be granted an opportunity to appear before the committee at its scheduled committee meeting to present his or her views relative to the proposed resolution or ordinance. No citizen's remarks on any item may exceed 10 minutes. However, the 10-minute limitation may be waived by a majority vote. This time limitation shall not apply to any individual, entity, or designee thereof specifically invited to appear and speak on a properly noticed topic. Upon favorable majority vote of the city council, the citizen shall be permitted to appear in a regular special session at a time, place, and duration to be determined by the council president to present his or her views on the docket resolution ordinance. The quick summary is we're requesting that folks comply with this 10-minute commentary on any particularized item, and we're going to do the best I can to keep track of it throughout the process. And it was equally changed for the council persons as well.
Thank you. And moving forward with the, so I'm going to ask the members of the committee to please look at item number 4. Spring repairs, bid number 2022-009, spring repairs and related work. And that is found on page 19 in your bid package. Christy? I believe it's Christy.
Yes, that one's mine.
Okay. Hello.
Hi.
Okay. So it's all yours.
Are we skipping to the 4th one?
Yes, we are. Because we're going right to at the very beginning, we're starting with the ones that are above the $50,000 threshold.
Very good.
That require discussion.
Okay.
Thank you.
I was a little confused there.
All right.
Public Works is requesting to award the bid for spring repairs and related work to Palmer Spring Company in the amount of $100,000. This is for a 2-year period, July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2023.
Thank you. Other questions from the committee? Councilman Foley.
Do we need to give it a PCR number to start?
No.
No, Councilman. The process is going to be moving forward under the rule changes that all these bids are technically part of one resolution, and that's the PCR 5921. And we can have discussion on that item and take commentary from the public on it, but we do not have to assign each item its own PCR. It only would, at the request of any member of the council, we can assign a PCR and segment that off of the agenda itself, but you don't need to give it one for discussion purposes.
Thank you. I'm all good.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? No. Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Christie, what did we spend in this line item last year?
We have spent $31,189.03.
In this current year?
Yes,
Okay. What did we spend last year?
I don't have that number with me, but I can certainly get it.
Okay. And the vehicles that we spent the 31,000 on for this year, as well as those vehicles that we spent monies on last year, are those vehicles still in service?
Yes.
Okay. And what's the average age of the vehicles that we're having to replace these springs and pots on?
I couldn't give you an honest answer on that. I'm not entirely sure. Primarily, this is our sanitation vehicles and fire trucks. I mean, we do have on the occasion to send a dump truck or something, but the majority of this money is spent on the sanitation fleet and the fire trucks.
Okay. And what was the budget for this item last year?
I believe last fiscal year,
I'm sorry, for this current year, this current
This-
fiscal.
$50,000. It originally started at 25,000 and then we recently increased it to 50.
Okay. And this is going to be for a 2-year bid, correct?
Yes,
Okay. Do you have any vehicles currently that, because you still have what, about 19,000 left in the line for this year?
yes, yep.
Do you have any vehicles currently that need to have spring work done?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right, thank you. Those are my
You're welcome.
questions.
Thank you, Councilman. So are there any other questions from the council? Questions from the council? Questions from the public? Any questions from the public?
None at this time, sir.
Thank you. Hearing none, we have Council Solicitor Walsh. We do ask for a vote in the committee for this item. Or do we just add it to the total consent calendar?
Unless a member wishes to take it off for some action other than the expected favorable action vote, it can remain where it is.
Thank you.
On the agenda.
Understood. Thank you so much. So hearing no other comments, we'll move on to item number, I believe it's 13? 13. Bid number 2022-022, disposal of solid waste and recyclables. This is the second item for over the $50,000 threshold. Christie?
Public Works is requesting spending authority at Rhode Island Resource Recovery for the tipping fees for the residential waste and recycling. We are requesting $3,200,000. That is a 2-year period, as stated in the contract. This contract requires council approval prior to the mayor and city solicitor signing.
Thank you so much, Christie. Thank you so much, Christie. So this is as you said, this is a 2-year contract. And are there any additional fees? Something I was thinking about. Is there any additional fees? Let's say if some people, because I heard discussion in the past, if people mix in their garbage with the recycling, are there additional fees besides what we're requesting to have done with this?
They're part of it's all within the contract, but yes, there are fees. If we send a recycling truck to the landfill and the load gets rejected when they dump it, then we have to pay an additional $250 on top of the tonnage for that load, for them to basically pick it up and put it into the trash side.
Okay, so that's if people just throw the garbage and one of our operators miss it, but then when it's dumped, they notice that it's a garbage and not a recyclable.
Right, and there's a certain threshold, but when when there's a lot of cardboard or mixed recycles in with,
Sure.
I mean, excuse me, when there's a lot of trash in with the mixed recyclables, that's when they reject the load. And,
Understood.
but yeah, so that's why we encourage proper recycling.
Yep, I understand. Thank you so much. I see Council President McAllister's hand is up.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to ask the committee if they have any questions first.
Oh, I didn't know if you wanted to say, okay, I apologize then. I can wait. Are there any other questions from the committee? Any other questions for the committee? I see none, Mr. President. Go ahead.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Christy, just explaining this a little out, it's a big number here that comes in. These rates are set by the state. The city does not get to really negotiate or set the rates on these, correct?
That's correct. And per Rhode Island state law, we are required to dump our trash at the Johnston landfill. So we really don't have any other option.
Absolutely. So this is one of those nice little gifts we get from the state, kind of, here's the bill, figure it out, but you have to do it. So, and also this is one of the reasons why it's so important. I'm sure we all get the calls every once in a while when someone brings in their recycling bin first because it got emptied first and then they don't pick up their trash. You got to leave your recycling bins out until your trash is picked up so they know, because we have to make sure we're recycling. So that's the only way. Unfortunately, our drivers are doing thousands of streets. So there's no way for them to know that you brought it in earlier. So please leave your both bins out so they know that you recycled, and because that's how important this is. You see how expensive it is if you don't recycle the right way. So that's why that's the policy that it's set up. So thank you very much, Christy.
Thank you.
You're muted, Councilman Howe. Councilman Howe, you're muted.
Mr. Chairman, you're muted.
I'm sorry. My chair creaks, so I always mute myself, and maybe I shouldn't. Mr. Chafee, I noticed that your hand is what I was saying, Mr. Councilman Lattiser, if you don't mind, I'm going to see if Mr. Chafee, I see his hands up if you wanted to make a comment.
That's fine.
Just to point out, my previous employer, the league, was very involved in lobbying to keep the fees down. And the Resource Recovery had planned to institute an earlier rate increase. I think we were successful in also dealing, and Mayor Lombardi from North Providence is the league's representative on the Resource Recovery. And I think he was helpful in moderating the timing of the rate increase. I would say we're still lower than depositories in our neighboring states considerably. But as we know, the landfill is running out of space. So it's something we have to be concerned about going into the future.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chafee. Councilman Lattiser, your hand is up.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So, Christy, I just share with you and my colleagues on the council, I completely agree with your analysis here of the fees for dumping, the tipping fees. They've gone like ridiculously crazy over the past few years. And about 3 years ago, as an example, in my world, we were paying something like $56 a ton. Then it went to $75 a ton. And in this past year, it went up to $115 a ton. So, I certainly concur with what you're dealing with regarding those fees and support what you need to do. My question is, how are you going to budget the 3.2 million? Right now, your budget for this year is $1,530,650. How are you going to change that up so you have enough money in that account to support this bid?
So we have, we estimated for our fiscal year 22, at least it's going to be 1.6 million. So times 2 years, we might have to adjust for fiscal year 23, but that's a little bit out. Right now, we're actually kind of holding steady. And the other thing that actually works to our benefit is every year the landfill adjusts every municipality's cap either up or down depending on how, your population and things like that. They're increasing our cap 1,664 ton for fiscal year 22. We are estimating that we'll be over this year. We'll be paying the $80 a ton, estimating based on the average 3,031 tons, which would be an additional $104,700. So we expect our expenses in fiscal year 21 to be lower than the budgeted amount that's currently in that line item.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if that answers your question.
So for July 1st, 21, this 3.2 million is going to take effect in the upcoming fiscal year.
No, it will, this is for 2 fiscal years, so only half, so 1.6.
No, I understand. That's what I'm
Oh,
saying. But it's
okay.
going to start in
Yes, July.
of 2021 will be your first fiscal year. And
Yes.
then in July 22, it'll kick in your second fiscal year.
Correct.
So what you're saying is for the first fiscal year, the budget will be 1,600,000. So when we get the budget package, sometime shortly, you'll be reflecting 1,600,000 in there. Is that it?
That's what was submitted by the, I obviously haven't seen it either, so.
Right.
But
right.
I'm assuming so, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Other members of the council on bid 2022-022? Any questions from the public? Questions from the public?
Not at
Okay.
this time, sir.
Thank you so much. And hearing none, now I will go to the consent calendar. So we will have discussion on PCR 59-21. If there is any item on PCR 59-21 that needs to be brought up, and I'll start with one. If I could have bid number 2021-295, Bill, if you're available. Thank you, Bill.
Good afternoon.
So this is item number 3, bid number 2021-295. Bill, if you wouldn't mind going ahead and indicating what you'd like to have and do.
Sure. So the Office of Housing and Community Development would like to award a RFQ to BL, sorry, I'm missing the BL Companies New England, sorry, of Warwick. As you remember, or you may not remember, the engineering and architectural services have to be done in accordance with state and federal law as an RFQ and not an RFP, so we don't have a dollar amount set. The law requires the city to negotiate with the highest qualified vendor. We submitted 3 qualified vendors. There was a list attached to the bids, the recommendation letter. BL Companies was the highest scoring. Beta Group was the second. Crossman Engineering, GZA, Geo Environmental was third, and Crossman came in fourth. According to the law, we need to negotiate with the highest qualified vendor first on a negotiated price. I originally put in the request for award of a maximum spending authority of $45,000. This does not include, the RFQ did not include some additional supplemental work that we may need to have done. This is for the Oakland Beach splash pad and playground area. The city received 2 substantial grants for this work. We received a $400,000 Rhode Island DEM grant, as well as a $225,000 Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank grant. We're also going to be matching those 2 grants with community-owned block grant funds. So for all intents and purposes, there are no City of Warwick funds coming out of for this project. It's basically $1 million project in Oakland Beach. The reason I'm asking, I'm going to ask for a change, an amendment to the amount of spending authority. I'd like to ask for a $65,000 spending authority. The reason for this is we are looking to develop and have constructed a custom shade structure made out of steel, and we're not sure what the engineering costs are going to be. So we don't want to leave ourselves short with awarding the 45, and then when we negotiate, we don't have enough wiggle room to have the steel structures done, as well as some additional. There could be some hydraulic engineering done. We could even have some seismic engineering done. When we put the gazebo in the commons, we had to put some helical anchors to hold the gazebo in. So we're just looking for a little bit of wiggle room on the spending authority. We will negotiate with BL companies in New England to get the best price, but we just would like to have a little bit of room on that. So I would ask that it be awarded an RFQ. So I'm not sure how you want to award it, but it's maximum spending authority of $65,000.
Thank you. For just for questions and answers, could you tell me the difference between an RFQ and an RFP briefly?
An RFQ is a request for qualifications. It's qualification based only, looking at the resumes and past practices and past work. An RFP is a request for proposals, asking for a dollar amount to do a particular project. And according to state and federal law, or federal law that mimics, state law that mimics federal law, engineering and architectural services cannot be awarded by an RFP. Design services cannot be awarded that way. They have to be awarded by qualification based.
Understood.
That's the difference.
And this money right here, this money is, as you explained, this has not come out of the taxpayer. This is from grant money. This is authorization to get qualified to spend this money that was obtained through a grant.
Correct. This is going to be coming out of the Community Development Block Grant Fund, the 65,000 or the maximum of 65,000 to help match the $225,000 the city was able to receive in grants.
Yep.
Additional grants, 625,000.
Great. I look forward to also doing the same thing for Mickey Stevens. Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Any questions from the committee? Questions from the council? Questions from the council? Anybody? No, go ahead, Councilman Lattiser.
Bill, on these, on this work for this playground area, tell us why this needs to be done.
You're talking about the engineering and survey support services, this contract. So basically, the city of Warwick applied for 2 grants, one from Rhode Island DEM Recreation Grant and one from the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank. We were awarded $625,000 of those 2 grants. And as part of that, we need, the purpose of the grant was to redo and install a splash pad, a shade area, and redo the playground that is currently down in Oakland Beach on the Midway. We don't have the expertise in-house to design this. It's in a coastal feature. We need to have surveying done, hydraulic engineering done. So the city of Warwick does not possess that expertise. So we're asking to go out to bid for this service. So it's to supplement help design the splash pad, shade structure, and renovations to the Oakland Beach area.
Does this have anything to do with the 2 walkways not meeting correctly,
No.
having some sort of an issue with that?
No, so indirectly it does. We're using the money that we spent, the city spent through CDBG as part of the match for this work as well. So we're taking credit for that work on the boardwalk. The issue that we had with the boardwalk was that when the boardwalks were installed, there was one installed earlier than the other, and they didn't match up. So the heights of the foundation walls didn't match up. as part of the original boardwalk contract, we ripped out the wood that was on the small boardwalk that went, for all intents and purposes, between the playground and Oakland Beach Avenue. We ripped the wood out. We left the concrete footings to be removed during this splash pad construction. So it is not connected to the ADA issue that we had with the boardwalk, but it is used using the boardwalk cost as a match towards this project. We're matching it with about $200,000 in CDBG funds. So we've spent $147,000 on the boardwalk, and we're asking for $65,000 for the design services.
Did we have an engineering firm that did the design for that boardwalk?
That was used the previous plans that we had in our office. They were just copied in-house.
So we didn't have an outside engineering?
No, because we didn't
firm?
do any structural. We didn't do anything structural. So we just took out the wood and put the new wood on top. And it just, unfortunately, it wasn't caught at the time that there was a height difference between the early boardwalk and the later boardwalk. I'll call it the 1993 boardwalk and the 1997 boardwalk.
Okay. Okay. That's all I got on that one, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, also, in an abundance of caution, on 2022-011, minor roof repairs, in an abundance of caution, I'm going to recuse on that one.
Okay.
The reason being, you'll all remember back in the day that I was the one that had gotten Fury Roofing to donate their labor, et cetera, to do those repairs on the Buttonwoods building. So out of an abundance of caution for perception, I'm going to recuse on this.
Understood. Thank you so much, Councilman. Lynn, just since we're on this topic, I'm going to, and Councilman Ricks, I do see a hand up. Just bear with me. We'll go back to that. Lynn, if I could have a PCR for 2022-011.
PCR 6121.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Councilman Ricks, is this on bid number 2021-295?
It isn't. It's actually on the one that was just assigned the PCR.
Oh, okay. Give me one moment if you don't mind. Thank you so much. Because we started the discussion, I'd like to give members of the committee, or I'm sorry, close it out with members of the public with discussion to this. Were there any questions from members of the public? Any questions from members of the public?
Not at this time, sir.
Thank you. So if I understand this correctly, solicitor, this one would, since he's asking for an increase, I will pull it out with a PCR.
Yes, if there's an amendment to be made, this would be the appropriate time for a committee member to make a motion on this particular item. It's been vetted by the panel and an opportunity for public comment has occurred. So if this one wishes to be pulled off, this would be a time to do it.
Okay, so that no vote is needed. We just assign it to PCR and let it go to the council.
It would still need a separate recommendation. So if it is your intention to accommodate the request that was made by the director, a motion to amend on whatever the new PCR number would be in order, followed by a vote as amended amongst the committee members.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you so much just for the reinforcement. So Lynn, if I'm correct, this is PCR 62-21?
That's correct.
Thank you so much. So item number 3 was 2021-295 is now PCR 62-21. May I have a motion on the amendment or to amend?
Move to increase the spending authority to $65,000 on the PCR you just read out.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you so much. We have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you. Now may I have a motion? I'm sorry. All right, thank you. Now may I have a motion to PCR 62-21 as amended?
Move favorable.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, actually, I'd like to move on. We'll move on to what bid number 2022-011, minor roof repairs at various city-owned buildings, which is now PCR-61-21. And I actually have a couple questions. Is it Christie, I believe?
It is me.
Hi, Christie.
Hi.
So if you could please explain to me the minor, or explain to the committee and the council, I apologize, minor roof repairs, and what are we looking at as far as this bid and what's expected out of it?
So the Public Works Department would like to award this bid to both vendors, East Rivet Roof Services and Fury Roofing, in the amount of $30,000. This is for a 2-year period, again, July 1st, 2021, expiring June 30th, 2023. So essentially, we are looking for a $15,000 cap per year. But over the course of 2 years, we're asking for $30,000. Now, this bid we used for minor roof repairs, minor roof leaks, things like that. It's not for major work to be done. If we had to replace a roof, this isn't the type of bid that we would use. We would go out to bid for a roof replacement on if it was a building. But if we had, a corner that needed to be patched or something that needed to be sealed or something to that effect, that's where we would use this. In the last year, we spent $5,393. That was, I want to say, over the course of, I think it was 8 different purchase orders. So they're not, I think the biggest one that we had was for 2 invoices and it was $1,500. So it's not for those $20,000, hey, we need to re-roof something.
Are there any buildings that stand out?
Yes, we have leaks in some of them. There are a couple of buildings that have some issues, but I don't think it would qualify under this bid. We can make repairs, but if we fix one thing and it leaks somewhere else. So it's kind of gotten to where we really need to maybe look at going down a different avenue.
My final question is, are any of the buildings that we're looking at, some of the buildings maybe that were former schools that are now being utilized by the city or fall under city ownership?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee? Questions from the committee? Seeing none, respectfully, Councilman Lattiser, if you don't mind, I'm going to go to Councilman Ricks, because I'm kind of anxious to hear what the profession has to say about this, but Councilman Ricks.
Thank you, Chairman. So when I was looking this over, and I suppose that part of the reason it caught my eye is because Fury Roofing is not just based in Warwick. I also noticed by the street address that it's based in Ward 2. Not that I don't give a close look to everything over the Finance Committee agenda, but this in particular stood out to me. So, and I will just say for the record that I'm not sure if I've ever met the owners of Fury Roofing. I couldn't pick them out of a crowd. So, I have no connection to them aside from noticing that the address is inside Ward 2. But speaking on that topic, I suppose that I have 2 questions. The first is that I noticed that in the bid, and the numbers are pretty similar when we're looking at the hourly rates between Fury Roofing, which is a little bit more expensive than East Rivet. I'm not sure if travel time is at all included in that hourly rate, because if we're looking at the difference in travel time from Cypress Street in Warwick to really anywhere in the city, and compare that to the travel time from Connecticut to Warwick, then that small difference in the hourly rate would become dwarfed by the chargeable travel time if travel time is chargeable.
Travel time is not chargeable. If that was something that they expected the city to pay, they would have had to include it in their bid submission. And neither vendor included it as part of their package. So the hourly rate is, it's from, on site, start to finish.
Well, that's very good. Thank you for being knowledgeable on that. Let's see. I did notice that on the first year, the bids are such that Fury Roofing would actually be within 5%. Let's see. I'll pull up the document. And yeah, it was Fury Roofing per person per hour, $115. East Rivet at $110. So that's within the 5%. And so for that reason alone, and certainly I have one other question before I would request that the committee consider an amendment in that from my understanding of reading over the packet, East Rivet would be preferred as the lowest qualified bidder, but being local, Fury Roofing would be the backup. And so as to that first year, consistent with our recent Finance Committee practices, I think that it would be appropriate for the local vendor to receive preference as it's within 5%.
Actually, 7%. It is. Yes, it is, Councilman. That's a great point. That can be considered. And thank you for identifying that.
Well, thank you.
I'm sorry, Councilman Ricks, if we could, I see Council President lit up. Council President, did you have something to add?
I was just going to ask the same thing, say the same thing, Councilman Ricks. I think that's a great point. I understand, Christy, you were recommending 2 just in case one of them is not available and you need immediate. That's why you're recommending 2. As you know, we like to have one vendor if possible, but it's just in case they're busy, they're working elsewhere and they can't get to us.
Yes, there are certain bids, excuse me, there are certain bids that, it's beneficial to the city to have more than one vendor available to us, particularly in the case of an emergency when it comes to buildings and, vehicles for the most part. If we have something that we need addressed immediately and somebody can't get to us for whatever reason, it does give us the ability to say, okay, well, let's go to the next guy.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted that on the record because that was one of the things. But no, I agree with Councilman Ricks. If we could work on, maybe we put the Warwick company, will be the first call. But I'll let the committee work on that.
Thank you.
So, thank you,
Mr. President. So I have a question for Christy and the solicitor, if you don't mind. Christy, you wrote in your letter, as the Councilman Ricks identified, that they would be the backup, but since they fall within the 7% of being a local company, we don't have to amend that. You can do that there, or are we as a council required to amend that?
I think as the department, that was something that we can certainly just take care of in-house. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think that requires like a council amendment to the bid because both vendors are awarded. And if I had to guess, I would imagine that Fury would be the first call because they are so local. But if they're out or if they don't have a crew that's available, then we'd go to the next guy.
I'm also, please understand, I'm also looking out for your department because I know that here we've this committee for quite some time has made sure that when something's written that it's, like if you say the primary and the secondary, we want to make sure that you're not, you are covered, even though I do understand that the ordinance, as Councilman Ricks referred to, within the 7%, this meets it. So I will welcome Councilman Ricks to ask another question. I would ask Solicitor Walsh if he feels his personal feeling, if we have to just go ahead and identify that in our vote, that would be fine. But Councilman Ricks, go ahead, continue.
Well, thank you. My one other question, and I suppose this is also a bit of a twofer, because, I'll start at the beginning. I guess taking a page from our colleague Councilman Lattiser's book, since I've seen him on these sorts of issues, take a quick look at the Secretary of State site as well as the CLRB site in the past. It occurred to me the out-of-state vendor, take a quick look to see if they are registered with the Secretary of State and with the Contractors Registration Board for business in Rhode Island. And based on the criteria that I put in, I just put in East River. And what I was noticing from using this portal is that usually when you put in the start of a business entity name, then if it's registered, then it's going to pop up on the portal. In this case, East River, excuse me. Let me make sure that I have the name correct. I know that I put in the name correctly in the different portals, but in fact, let me just double check right now. East Rivet. So I'm punching it in the CLRB site, and it's not coming up with any hits.
It's Eagle Rivet.
Oh, Eagle Rivet. Thank you. Let me, in fact, do that right
Either
now.
that or it's wrong in my letter.
Oh, well.
In your letter, it's correct, but unfortunately on our cover head, it does say East Rivet.
I don't know. Purchasing might be right.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, that's it. When I punch in Eagle Rivet, it does pop up as being properly registered. So that resolves that question. And that was also, I suppose this second part is a little bit moot, but I'll throw it out there. It's actually a question for our city council solicitor. I know that Councilman Lattiser has recused himself from the vote, and then along with that would be a recusal from the discussion of the same item as a member of the council. But if memory serves, that even with a recusal, if it's an issue where he has knowledge in the area, it's my understanding that he would still be able to speak as a member of the public.
I'll defer to legal counsel on that one.
To preserve the recusal, I would recommend not partaking in the discussion at all. And as it relates to the prior question, the department has requested both vendors be presented. The resolution itself has them in, it appears, the order that may be preferred. So I don't believe that any changes to the resolution itself need be adopted.
Well, we need to change the company name because it's incorrect on the resolution.
Have we identified what the correct name is?
Actually,
Is it-
yes. I see
Is it
in
East
the
or is it
CRB.
Eagle? It is Eagle.
I have Eagle Rivet on the letterhead of the actual request from the department.
When I first looked at it, I thought it said Eagle River, so the rivet threw me.
I see Miss Petska's on. Go ahead, Miss Peshka. Sorry, Peshka.
That's okay. Christy, you don't have the submission in front of you, do you?
No, I don't have the bid.
Okay. I don't have the bid either. I do apologize if we did make an error. Christy, you feel, well, from what we're seeing, it should be Eagle. I would say we would amend it at this point. I just wanted to add a little clarification to help out in regards to the certificate of good standing and so forth. Once you approve this bid, we send a contingent approval letter to any vendor that you've officially approved, and they're required to give us these documents prior to an official award. So I greatly appreciate what Councilman Ricks was doing. We do that also. But before we would award, and I'm just doing this to reassure you all, before we would award anyone, they have to provide us with those documents before we'd officially award them. So I do apologize in the error. We do have another vendor, which is East River. So I think when in our haste, we corrected the river to rivet, but we didn't correct the East to Eagle. So I would suggest we amend it to Eagle and we move forward.
The fact that you were able to do the East and the River and the Eagle, and that's impressive. In the conversation. So, Solicitor, oh, I'm sorry. So let me get back. So Councilman Ricks, thank you. Was that pretty much your comments?
Yes, I'll just throw out there that I just double checked it on the Secretary of State portal and the CRB site, and it's coming back as Eagle Rivet Roof Services Corporation. So I guess it would also just be the change from Inc. to Corp. At the end there as well.
Okay. Solicitor, we would be required to do you still feel that we can put it forward in understanding that
We have already identified this for its own PCR, so I would recommend that we complete the correction of the title of the
Okay.
Other awardee, so that an amendment to change the word East to Eagle would be in order.
and would we also change where it says Inc. to Corp?
Many businesses incorporated use corp as interchangeable. I don't believe Connecticut law is different on this factor, but if they are registered as such and we're making the amendment anyway, we might as well. So,
Thank you.
Councilman Ricks, I believe you had pulled their formal registration up.
Correct.
Okay, and they do business under the official name of Eagle Rivet Roof Services Corporation. Okay,
Correct.
then an amendment to do such would be in order to change
Okay.
to Eagle Rivet Roof Services Corporation.
Thank you. We will get to that in a moment. I'm going to go through the rest of the process. If I just have 1 second just to update my notes. Okay. Thank you. Councilman Lattiser, was your hand up for this?
No,
Okay, thank you.
it was for another one.
Okay, okay, thank you. Are there any other comments from the council? Any other comments from the council? Any comments from the public? Comments from the public?
Not at this time, sir.
Thank you so much. So here's what we'll do. I am going to request an amendment to PCR 61-21 that the company be identified as the alternate company Eagle Rivet Roof Services Corporation. Correct, Solicitor Walsh?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to that effect.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Now if we can move PCR 61-21 as amended.
Move favorable action.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Christie. Thank you, Councilman Ricks.
I don't know if it matters, but I don't think we needed that second vote.
As amended?
Oh,
Yes,
So
we did?
Second.
Okay.
Yes.
my bad.
that's all right. That's okay.
Okay, we're all still, we're all still figuring it out. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to call again, Councilman Lattiser. I do see your hand is up, so I'm going to make the official call. Calling any other items from PCR 59-21, Councilman Lattiser.
Yes, I have a question on 2021-194.
That is item 2, Harbor Master Boat Maintenance. That is found on page 13.
13. And the question would go to Director Wiley. Hi, Director, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. Director, you're asking for $1,500 and it's for repairs and maintenance. It says we now have repair estimates for CNL or from CNL Marine for boats 1 and 4 for repairs and maintenance. I certainly am completely in support of maintaining our fleet of boats, but also, as I'm sure you've heard in various meetings, I'm also a proponent with regard to the invoices, and I don't see any invoices in our binder for these repairs that you're asking for. And I was just wondering if you could let us know what those repairs are and how it comes up to the 1,500.
The 1,500 would be the maximum amount that we would need, and it would be for scheduled maintenance on the boat engines, also for oil. And if there's enough left, we may do some painting as well. But it's it's the general maintenance, and we want to make sure that we can cover all of the stuff that needs to be done on the 2 boats.
Okay, again, it says here, we now have repair estimates from CNL Marine. That's what I'm asking for. What are those repair estimates that you now have?
I'd have to look. I'd have to go back and look. I did not bring those home with me. But I can get you that information.
Councilman Lattiser,
Yes.
if I may interrupt for one moment. Thank you. So I'm kind of, I think I understand what, because I'm a little confused on what Councilman Lattiser is saying too. So you're saying you need the money, you need the monies for maintenance on the boats for the season,
Yes.
but the councilman identified that it's saying, well, we already received estimates on this item, and therefore, and I think that's where some of the confusion's coming in from, Director.
Yeah, I didn't realize that we had received estimates on it. When I talked to the harbor master this morning to get some clarification as to what I'd be asking for and to be able to entertain and answer questions appropriately, this is the information that he gave me. He did not tell me that we already had estimates on it. What he told me was it was for the scheduled maintenance that we do every year on the boats. And it would include oil, 2-stroke oil, about 6 gallons, and maintenance on the engines in case something else came up. But it would be up to $1,500, and there is enough money in the harbor master budget to cover it.
Okay. Councilman Lattiser, I'm sure you had more questions. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so what we're saying then, this is not for repair estimates that we already have. It's for routine maintenance going forward. So my point is, we shouldn't expect to see any repair bills prior to today, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
But I will double check, and I will send you an email tomorrow. I'll get some more information.
Okay.
I'll send you an email tomorrow.
Okay, so, and for our purposes this evening, this 1,500 that you're looking to increase for a total of 4,000 would be those essentials that you just spoke about, oils and fluids,
Oil.
hot ends.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'd appreciate that, Director.
I'll send you an update tomorrow.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. If you don't mind, Director, send it to the council liaison. She can forward it to the committee as well. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you. Committee, are there any questions from the committee pertaining to item number 2, 2021-194? No questions from the committee. Questions from the remainder of the council. Questions from the remainder of the council. Questions from the public. Questions from the public. Hearing none, are there any other items on, oh, I apologize. Are there any other items on PCR 59-21? Councilman Gebhardt.
Could we just briefly talk about 2021-342, please?
2021-342. What item number is that, please? Oh, here it is. Is that item number 12, C-Click Fix software license?
That's
very well. Item number 12 is on page 58. Councilman Gebhardt, you have the floor.
Hi, Christy. So I've had some briefing on this one. This sounds like a great project. My question for you really is, are you aware of any time frame or estimated time frame for this to become a reality, were it to be approved tonight?
To be honest with you, I think it's just something that needs to be coordinated with the vendor as far as getting, excuse me, as far as getting, there's like 10, included in this price is there's 10 users. So on the city end, there's 10 people that can be assigned. So we get notified when things come in, and then, you know, we can mark off when it was, when the job has been completed. This is actually user-friendly for anyone that has a smartphone. It's an app that they can download, and, you know, it'll geolocate you. You say, hey, I'm, you know, standing on a pothole in, you know, just pick on Kilbert Street. And it gives us the location of the pothole. It sends notification to the city. And then once we fill the pothole, it sends notification back to the person that made the original request. So this could probably be used for more than just potholes, but at this point, this is, you know, the primary concern, but I'm sure we can use it for, you know, probably anything. And anyone can put it in, anyone, it doesn't matter where you are, as long as, and it will know, if you're not in the city of Warwick, it won't let you put in any sort of anything outside our parameters. So it's actually, it's pretty interesting, and I think it'll definitely be a good thing for the city moving forward.
Great. And then I just have a process question. So I haven't had the time to go down to DPW and understand how you track work orders and all that sort of thing. But does this create for you a whole separate work order system, or how do you plan to integrate the reports you get through other, you know, I send an email off to somebody and say, hey, somebody reported a pothole, and then, you know, now having this app.
So instead of sending that email, you can report it right into the program, and that eliminates that piece. And then once we take care of whatever the issue is, it reports back to you. From what I understand, we can run reports on locations of where things were needed to be done, when they were fulfilled. I have not personally been really involved in getting the information, but I have, Eric and I have discussed it at length, because I was kind of like, what is this? So he explained it to me, and it's used by a lot of cities and towns. I know that when I was looking today as well, like New Bedford has it. So it's well worth the money. It's a 3-year term. We are only requesting one to see how it works for us in the city of Warwick, how much use it gets, and you know, how quickly it allows us to turn things around. And then, you know, we'll evaluate it towards the end of the contract period to see if it's something that we should pursue for another term.
All right. Thanks, Christy. Very exciting. Love to see progress.
Thank you, Christy. Christy, by the way, thank you for the shout out. Maybe we'll get on Kilbert. I know that the DBW director is listening in, so plug. I appreciate that. I saw that Councilman Lattiser had his hand up bright and early, so I'll go ahead, Councilman Lattiser.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Christy, I think this is just it's a great idea. I think conceptually it's actually outstanding, and it dovetails perfectly with another item that we just recently approved at the department's request, which is the hot box. This is excellent. So to follow along Councilman Gebhardt's question, so we take the picture, and I know how to do that well, you guys know that, and send it off to you. Would we also receive something that says you received it?
I'm not sure how that piece works, but I do know that when we're done, so when we go back in for each item that came through and we say, we fixed the pothole on Kilvert Street at this location, and it was submitted by Councilman Lattiser, you will get a notification that we filled the pothole.
I can assure you, any request to fill potholes in Kilvert. I wouldn't want to get that council person upset with me.
But just for, I mean, it'll definitely streamline things for us. You know, the system that we use now for work orders is you know, it's a lot of data entry, it's time consuming, and it is a Microsoft program that we use, but you know, there's a lag for us, you know,
Right.
the calls come into highway, they write it down, then the paperwork comes up front, someone enters it into Access,
Yeah.
and we print each one out, it goes back out to highway. So even though we try to do it every day, but right now it's
happen.
impossible.
Things happen. It would be good to know if when it's received, if we receive notice on it, because again, you guys know, I just keep sending them and sending them and sending them. But if
However,
you know ahead of time that it has been received, that would be great. I think it's a great move forward for the department and certainly for all of the 9 wards. The other question I have is, did this item go out for bid?
this is actually part of a Sourcewell contract, which is, so yes, it essentially did go out to bid, just not in the state of Rhode Island. It's part of a Sourcewell contract that's government entities. So it's kind of like piggybacking a state MPA, just bigger. So yes, it was a bid. And the reason it's a 56.6 is because we don't have a mechanism like a 56.10 to piggyback a state bid. Even though it is a bid contract, we just don't have a mechanism in our ordinances that allow us to do that. So that's why we have to present it to you this way.
Okay, so it does meet all the bid requirements.
Yes.
Okay. All right, this is I think it's a really good thing. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Just as I'm listening to the conversation, I'm so sorry. My grandson's upstairs just yelling at the top of his lungs, trying to get our neighbor's attention. So that's the laughing. So I apologize.
I'm waiting for my dog to start barking soon.
I'd like to say before I identify Councilman Ricks that I remember Councilman Ricks was attempting to do something similar to this about 4 years ago. He was doing a lot of research on this, so I'm kind of happy to see that it's moved forward. So Councilman Ricks, I welcome you to take the floor.
Thank you. Sharp memory. In fact, I was before this just checking my old notes, going back in the email. By the way, I'm almost at the 15 gigs mark for my email, and most of it is pictures of potholes. No kidding there. But yeah, 4 years ago, in fact, it was PCR 82-17. Got it in front of me. Similar idea back then. We had no idea what it would cost. And if this system is highly effective at, say, I believe it's $7,000 a year, then imagining how much time and effort that would save, well, money well spent to make this all so much more efficient and more effective. But you know, if it's at all possible to set it up so that for multiple time users of a system, like I'm sure all of us on the council would be, that it could be streamlined so that we create a username and are able to automatically get an email sent to us every time that we send in one of these, a receipt, if you will, so that we're not having to, you know, fill out everything every single time. Because honestly, if I don't get a receipt, then what I'm going to end up doing is doubling the effort and sending the email with all of the same info anyway, just to make sure that I have it in my own records. In fact, some of that reason I never delete any of these pothole emails or the like is just the other day with some stormwater drainage issues. I was going back in my email, finding some items from back in 2018, and then forwarding those along to make sure that I keep track of all of these details that, oh yes, there was a stormwater drainage problem here now. There was a stormwater drainage problem there, same place, 2018. And that way, I'm sure that all of us on the council do that sort of thing to make sure that those continuing issues end up getting the prioritization that they should be getting. And so I would like to make sure to congratulate and thank the administration for taking this up and figuring out these ways to do things more efficiently.
I myself have not looked at the app, but if you download it, maybe you might be able to figure out how to navigate it and see what kind of features it has. I haven't looked at it yet. I've been swamped, so I get my tutorial and I'm like, okay, I'm good for now.
We understand
but
that.
that might explain some of those questions that you're looking for. You would likely probably have to have a username, I would imagine. So that might, and then maybe it'll keep track of, the request that you put in, something like that.
Thank you, Christy. Councilman Ricks, I just want to say that 14 gigs of mine is just on Kilvert. So there, we just wiped that out. Councilwoman Travis. Pro Tem.
Yes, thank you. Well, I was very excited when I seen this. I think this is going to be, I'm hoping that it does work out well, because I think this is going to be a big help. I know I ride around my ward, I take my own pictures, and I like Councilman Ricks, I got plenty of puddles on my phone. But if we get the pictures in there early enough and they get addressed, that I think is going to help the claims also, because then we won't have people repeating like they do on Kilvid or Hardingbrook. You get more than one. So I think this is going to be great. I really do hope it works out. And I want to say good luck with it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And yeah, you're right. It'll definitely lighten the load that Chairman Foley has to deal with in public safety. Councilman Lattiser, is your hand raised on item number 2021-342? Okay,
Yeah,
give me
is.
one moment. Thank you. Are there any other comments? This will be Councilman Lattiser's second round of questions. Are there any other questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattiser, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if any of you are in like a super bind and you need some asphalt to patch a pothole, just let me know. I can tell you where you can get it. Christy, because of the gigabytes, megabytes, super bytes, and whatever these guys are talking about over here, it brings the question: would there be a limitation on how much usage this gets? Like on my phone, as an example, you get these texts from Verizon say, "Oh, you've just about used up all your space. You got to buy more space." Would anything? I don't know the formal terms, but seriously. Would we have anything like that to be concerned with?
I don't think so. Like I said, I haven't looked at the app myself, but I'm guessing that even if it did, someone took a picture of, something that needed to be repaired, and it sends out the location and the photo. And I think it does do some sort of integrating with duplicates. So it shows that, we've had multiple requests for the same spot. But unless it saves a picture on your camera roll in your phone, which I can't imagine it would do, you could go in and delete that picture.
I don't mean on my end. I mean on your end.
Oh, on our end?
This particular app.
I don't think so. I think it might.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure. It may be cloud-based. But like I said, I have to say this was all Eric Earls. He chase this one down. So I'm just.
Where's Eric?
He had a family emergency he had to take care of, so he had to step away. But you know, if you have any other questions, I mean, certainly reach out to him because he's very well versed in this program.
Yeah, I'd just be curious of that, you know, if you know, all of a sudden we reach some end of however they keep track of this and they say, oh my God, you know, you got to spend another $5,000 because you used up all your time.
No, this is just
No.
it's a flat
Right.
fee
Okay.
for 365 days.
Okay.
No.
Great idea. Good. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions, comments from the public? Comments from the public?
No, sir, not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Any other items on PCR 59-21? PCR 59-21? Seeing none, solicitor, do we vote out the PCR or do we leave it alone and move on?
I would do one last round, council, or committee, council, and public, and if there's nothing after that, it'll
Thank
be
you,
one
okay.
one motion on what's left on PCR 59-21.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that, solicitor. Any questions, any other items from the committee on PCR 59-21? Any items from the council, PCR 59-21? Any items from the public on PCR 59-21?
Not at this time, sir.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve PCR 59-21?
Motion for approval?
Second.
Motion is, motion is made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you so much. The next item up would be, there's no acceptance of the minutes. Ordinance, excuse me one moment. PCO 17-19, ordinance relative to senior and veteran exemptions. That would be Councilman Lattiser, myself, Councilman McAllister, Council President McAllister, Councilman Sinapi, Councilwoman Travis, and Councilman Gebhardt. Councilman Lattiser, I know that, would you be interested in starting a discussion on this?
Actually, Mr. Chair, Councilwoman Travis and myself, we had spoken to Neil on this item this morning. And because this is still a work in progress, Councilman Ricks has a committee that he's working on. It's my understanding that there is legislation pending at the General Assembly to deal with this. So the consensus that we came to at the moment is to hold this until perhaps the second meeting in June.
Okay.
First meeting in June is okay too, whatever your privilege. And it's for those reasons. I think there's some wheels in motion here that we need to see what's going to happen.
Fair enough. Sounds good. And absolutely, because I know there has been some discussion also. That'll give us a good idea on the city side too of what our limitations, what we can do. Second meeting in June is what day, please?
June 21st.
Thank you. Why not have a meeting on the summer solstice? Why not? I voted on that too. All right, so may I have a motion to hold into PCO 17-19 till June 21st?
In the hold.
Move hold.
Second.
Second.
I'm going to give it to Councilman Gebhardt. Made the motion. Councilman Foley seconded it. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you. Item number 3, PCR 195-19, a resolution relative to creating a commission to study healthcare insurance benefits. Councilman Sinapi.
I go with July 19th on that, please.
We have a motion. We have a request from the sponsor to hold until July 19th. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Everyone stay in your seats, but the time is now 6:20 and the Finance Committee is closed. Thank you all.
What?
Next up this evening is the Ordinance Committee. This is Chairman Sinapi, Councilman McElroy, and Councilman Ritz, and we are in order to proceed.
Just looking for Councilman McElroy. There he is. All right, so ordinance will begin at 6:20 p.m. Looks like we do not have any minutes, so we can go right to PCO 9-20, ordinance in regards to amending chapter 40-30, PCO 8-18, smoking prohibited in public schools and on school grounds. That's Councilwoman Travis.
Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't even realize that was coming up so fast. I'm gonna have to hold that until June. The person that I was supposed to be working with, we couldn't meet because of COVID before. Then the person is out of work now because of injuries. So we're gonna be meeting in May, in June. So I would say the end of June. June 21st, I believe.
You got it.
Thank you.
All right, I'll move the hold till June 21st.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next, we have PCO 23-20, ordinance in regards to omnibus reforms, updates, and amendments to Chapter 4 of the Warwick Code of Ordinances entitled Animals and Fowls. That's Councilman Ricks and I. I was thinking probably at this rate that we're going, probably June. We go late June.
Yeah, I was thinking similarly. I'm trying to recall to what date we held the resolution, as the resolution should be heard before the ordinance itself.
I can't for the life of me recall. Worst case scenario. If
I
we're
can look it up if you want me to.
No, that's all right. Worst case scenario, if this comes up before, we'll just hold it again. So let's go for June 21st on that. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that seems fair.
So move the hold till June 21st.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have an ordinance in regards to ensuring shopping carts remain on their originating property. It's PCO 3-21. This is me. So this, I asked Attorney Pecchia to put together because I've been having issues in my ward, and I assume other wards are having the problem as well, where shopping carts from various businesses end up where they do not belong for one reason or another. And there seems to be little to no effort by the various businesses to do anything about it. And it's basically litter, except much larger. And it usually contains a lot of litter itself on top of that. So this basically incentivizes them to do something about it. And it gives them time in which to do so. And it also allows the city to be able to identify where these carts belong if they do end up finding one. Granted, most of them are tagged with branding of one sort or another. So it shouldn't be too big of an issue already, but this should take care of that unambiguously. So any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattiser.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So do you have any idea how many of these runaway shopping carts we have or you have?
So I drove down Knight Street last week, and there were 4 at the corner alone on that particular day. Usually there's at least one out and about, and I'm sure if we went street by street, road by road, we'd find a lot more than one. I've never gone road by road looking for them, but pretty much any day I go out, I will find at least one shopping cart, whether I like it or not.
Well, I'm going in my 9th year now, and I have not received one complaint that I recall about a runaway shopping cart. I have a lot of concerns about this from a business perspective. You take some of these larger stores, and I would say without exaggeration, they may have hundreds of these cots. And to start off with, in the first page on line 35, going into 36, you have or private cot retrieval company. Can you give us an idea of who or what a private cot retrieval company is? Can't hear you, Councilman.
Sorry, my son was talking to me, so I muted and then forgot. Can you direct me to the page again, please?
Yes, it's the first page of your PCO. It's on line 35. At the end of line 35, going into 36, it
I
says,
see.
yeah.
No, that's meant to be and Attorney Pecky can correct me if I'm wrong. That's meant to be a catch-all as far as who the agent is. So a company might hire a private cart retrieval company if they so choose. That's up to them. But that's still going to be the originating company's problem at the end of the day. So if the retrieval company, if there is one, and if they decide to get one, messes up what they're supposed to do, it's still the originating company's problem. And this helps assure that by having the word agent in there.
So who is a private cot retrieval company? Do we have any examples? Is there any such entity?
No idea.
Okay.
The point is to have the language in there. So if one does exist, this is inclusive of it and that we don't miss out on something due to legalese.
And do we have any idea what the cost would be to the business for hiring a private cot retrieval company that we don't even know exists?
I think you're conflating the issues, number one. Number two, no idea because I don't know of any other companies. Number three, most, if not all of these businesses already have someone that's getting the carts. You see them every day. One or two people, sometimes more, are retrieving the carts actively and bringing them into the store. The problem is some companies don't have such diligence and they don't have their employees either monitoring or taking care of it, which is why others freely steal the carts with no retribution, which is part of the problem. So I think you're focusing on language that's there to make sure we don't miss something and treating it as if it's the main part, but it's not.
Well, I'm treating it as a pot and I'm questioning it as a pot because I'm sure the business community who is going to have to pay for this is going to have questions about it as well. So I may as well do the questioning for them as best I can. So on page 2, amongst other pages, you have a lot of references to penalties. Who's going to be enforcing this? Who's going to be the cop, if you will? And who is going to be issuing these penalties? Who's setting up the procedure for issuing these penalties? Is this going to be like a speeding ticket? It's going to be a runaway cop ticket that will be issued to a particular entity? Will there be a ticket issued, and I don't have a better term than a ticket right now, for every time or every cot that happens to run away in your ward, perhaps? How is all that going to be administered, and who is going to pay for the enforcement of this?
I don't understand. You think someone's going to be paying for the enforcement of this? Number one, this bill brings in revenue from the perspective of if someone fails to properly identify their carts, they will be fined for it. Number two, if someone fails to properly retrieve their carts, the retrieval fee that you see there is for that. So if the department or any such company or agency within the city has to deal with the carts, as they likely are already dealing with now, then at least we'll get something to compensate us for that. And as far as the administration, like every ordinance we have, the people that are empowered under our ordinances and charter will similarly be empowered, just like anything else. So presumably the police will be able to enforce it, or the Department of Public Works, because the Department of Public Works, as you see here, is the one that shall be notifying the companies.
So the police department, who has their hands full just trying to keep up with speeders and the outlaws, etc. Now, if this passes, they're going to be expected to have a detail who's going to be out there issuing violations or tickets because of a cot that happened to leave someone's parking lot. Is that what we're doing here?
First, I'm not going to speak to how the police department does their job. That's their business. That being said, there'd be no reason for them to have a detail in charge of that. They could do the same thing that anyone else does as they're driving from place to place. They see a car where it doesn't belong, to take note of that and to figure out who the owner is so that they can be notified accordingly. That's it. It's not complicated.
Well, it's not. Well, yeah, I think it's onerous, and I think that it is something that's going to require a significant amount of time for a police officer. So how is he going to identify, or she is going to identify the particular cot? They have to get out of the car and go take a look at this cot and see what the ticket is on it. If there's no ticket on it, then try and determine who that is. Yeah, I think it's going to be extremely onerous and actually quite expensive. And we still haven't identified, at least to my question, still haven't identified how many cots, are we talking about? Are we talking about one or twosie? Are we talking a dozen? Or are we talking 1,000?
Are you asking me how many cots business owns or how many that are out and about?
No, how many runaway cots do we have?
I have no idea. I don't have any satellite projection that tells me how many carts are out and about. I told you how many I've seen on one outing in one particular place at one point. And I also have said I see one pretty much every time I leave my house. And I have constituents that call and complain about it because my ward happens to border the mall, or malls, I should say.
Okay. Yeah, well, I have, a super stop and shop in my ward. I have numerous mini malls in my ward. I have, quite a few of those. So you're not the only one that has, businesses that have cots. What I'm trying to wrap my arms around is this appears to be something that's going to be a significant cost. It's an unidentified cost at this particular time, but what appears to be a significant cost and an onerous burden at best for our police department and perhaps our DPW folks. They have enough trouble in their hands full just trying to keep up with trash bins that get smashed or run over or destroyed. But the other issue with this that is equally concerning to me is what I would label a very undue financial burden on these stores that have hundreds or more of these cots. They would have to label all these cots. They'd have to get labels made. They would have to get someone to install the labels on these cots. Then they would have to employ a cot cop to make sure the labels are still there and that the labels weren't worn out or worn off and illegible, and that they are replaced. And they have to pay for all this. And I think this is a very unfair burden to be putting on those entities that happen to need these shopping carts, such as your grocery stores and some of your other stores that are out there, your liquor stores, your hardware stores, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And further on, you speak about these cots at night or at the end of the business day or on the weekends or on a holiday, that they have to be locked. These cots have to be locked up if they're outside. So who's going to have the keys to those locks, or who's going to be responsible for keeping track of a code on those locks? Is this something that DPW is going to do? I think this is just another example of how unfair and onerous this is onto the local businesses, that they have to, somebody's going to have to be there to monitor the locks.
You have less than a minute,
penalty,
Councilman, on your.
what's that?
You have less
What's
than a
that?
minute left on your time.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, this is a perfect example of why that ordinance is so crazy. That you're gonna, this is a
Councilman
discussion,
Lattiser,
this
point
is
of
a
order.
discussion.
Point of order, you need to keep to the topic at hand.
Yeah, well, you brought up the topic. So this is a
No,
perfect.
I brought up the rule that you need to follow, like all of
This
us.
is the perfect example why we have an item here
Lattiser, your
that
time is up.
requires significant
Councilman Lattiser,
discussion
your time
that's
is
gonna
up.
have a negative
Councilman
impact on
Lattiser,
the
your time
business.
is up and you're out of order.
Fine, so I'm out of order. So,
Bill, is it possible to mute him?
I request the council rules be suspended in order to have further discussion on this item as it relates to a significant amount of our businesses in the city of Warwick who are already struggling
Councilman
day to day.
Lattiser has made a motion. The
I'm
colloquy
giving you the
not
basis of my
necessary.
motion. I'm
No,
giving you-
you're well
Councilman,
over
I'm giving
time.
you the basis of my motion.
You're already abusing everything about this and you know it. Now, Councilman
Chairman.
McElroy or Councilman Ricks, do either of you wish to make that motion?
I'll move to suspend the rule to grant Councilman Lattiser an additional 15 minutes of time.
Councilman McElroy, that's all you. If you want a second, I'm all set. Seeing
I
none,
thought this was
Councilman
something that could be
Lattiser will not
seconded
be
by any
granted.
council member. Isn't this
Pardon?
something that could be seconded by any council member? A ruling from the solicitor. Is this something that can be seconded by any council member?
The manner in which the rule changes to Rule 17 take place appear to read that, and I'll read from the rule itself. Some of this language pre-existed, but it's merged in. So no member shall speak more than once on the same question until all members desiring to speak thereon shall have done so. There shall be no conversation among members while a member is speaking, while a roll call is being taken, while any paper is being read, or while a question is being stated by the president or chair of the committee in the case of the committees. No member's remarks on any item may exceed 10 minutes. However, the 10-minute limitation may be waived by majority voice vote. It does not explain that the committee can do so. We already have in our rules that under rule, pull it up here. Rule 39 states that unless otherwise stated within the foregoing rule shall not be altered, amended, or suspended or repealed at any time except by the majority vote of the whole number of the members elected to the city council. So given the ambiguity in the rule change to Rule 17, it does not appear to give the committees explicit authority to amend the rules of the council. So in the absence of the council itself amending the rules, I would suggest that it is out of order at this time.
So
Unless
we changed Rule 39 as well.
So given the
We
current,
changed Rule 39
state-
to allow the committee to be able to suspend the rules if we so wish, because it says unless otherwise stated within, and this rule happens to say a majority vote, leaving it so that a committee's majority vote when it's in committee, and if it's before the full council, the council's majority vote.
so that's great, but you can't do that tonight.
Councilman Lattiser, please stop.
I'm asking for a legal
We're
interpretation.
trying to get that.
I would suggest that given the language parallels between Rule 17 and Rule 39, I would suggest that that's subject to point of order determination that in this case is vested in the committee chairperson to decide.
All right, so given that being the case, I said that the committee is allowed to suspend the rules per vote on a motion that is properly seconded. No second was received, so the motion fails.
So
Councilman
fine,
Ricks, do you have a
violate your own
question?
rules.
I do. So let's see, I'm starting my stopwatch. And once I finish with my questions, I will yield the balance of my time to Councilman Lattiser.
Is that under Robert's rules? Because we don't have that in ours. I assume it's.
I'm pausing the stopwatch since this is a discussion on the order. I see nothing in the council rules that says that we cannot do
Right.
that.
That's why I asked if it was under Robert's rules that you're doing that under.
I would reference Robert's rules since it is typical, and where the council rules do not speak on a particular subject, then typically our interpretation is that the general principles of Robert's rules apply or may be applied.
Solicitor Walsh, you appear ready to say something.
I was just going to address a point that I thought was being made as it relates to points of order should not, and discussion thereon should not be charged against any particular member's time.
Fully agreed.
All right. I will resume the stopwatch.
Just so you know, Councilman Ricks, under Robert's rules, a speaker cannot transfer the time to another member, according to this.
That's interesting.
Apparently,
Robert's rules is a guide, it's not the law.
Councilman Lattiser, stop. You have been out of order for some time now.
I have seen other organizations where time may be yielded to a particular member.
I mean, we can definitely consider adding that to ours. It's no reason not to at least think about it.
Well, I will get back to it, and then we can deal with the procedural point after I finish asking my questions. So, resuming now. On the penalties, this seems fine to me. I don't have a particular issue there with a failure to retrieve a cart within 24 hours. I similarly do not have an issue when it comes to the taking of the police time, DPW time to address this, because really issues with runaway shopping carts are also public safety issues. These runaway shopping carts, they get into the road, they get into other parking lots, people's cars are getting hit. It can do some pretty severe damage. Sometimes it's a matter of scratching the paint. Sometimes it's a matter of hitting the fender. One way or another, it's a burden on those residents, those constituents, those people who are otherwise visiting our city to shop in our city. And then once, say, these get into the street or in more residential areas or otherwise, the shopping carts can just become an eyesore. Well, there are in general a lot of good reasons to support this sort of ordinance, and I would like to thank Councilman Sinapi, Chairman Sinapi, for bringing this ordinance to the City Council, doing all of the work on this. I would suggest that perhaps there is something that we can do in terms of making this less of a burden for the business owners with the identifying information. Perhaps there is an amendment that we could work on in terms of if a business has only one location in the city, or if a business, say, has multiple locations, but they are all under the same ownership, then perhaps we should not necessarily be requiring all of those businesses in those particular types of categories to include their address and phone number.
Well, that makes perfect sense.
Oh, thank you. Only where businesses have different owners, and then we would be in a position of trying to sort out, okay, who potentially would bear a fine, and not wanting to put a fine on the wrong party. Does it really seem necessary to have the address and the phone number? In all other situations, well, these shopping carts, they are expensive. And so I have yet to see a shopping cart out there that does not have the identifying information of the business that owns it. I will also say that it is an issue that I have seen happen in Ward 2, where I won't call out any specific business, but there's one in particular where this sort of issue has come up multiple times, and more than one constituent reported the issue to me, and then they kindly took time out of their day to retrieve the shopping carts for the business when the business was refusing to pick it up themselves. So I do see the need for this. I think that generally speaking, this is a good way to resolve it. And most business owners, I'm sure, will have somebody out there to collect the cart within 24 hours of it being reported. But if not, then a $100 fine if it's not collected within the 24 hours seems like a fair mechanism. So if there were to be an amendment, I don't know if we want to do that here and now on the fly, or if we want to hold this for a future meeting to iron out the specific language. I would be comfortable with voting in favor of it. However, that said, I do want to also make sure that we are affording, especially on enacting an ordinance such as this, time for all of our fellow council members to speak. I am currently at 4 minutes and 40 seconds. I will now attempt to yield the balance of my time to Councilman Lattiser, or if it pleases this body, to any member of the council who may exceed the 10 minutes.
So unfortunately, that's not allowed under Robert's rules or our rules. Any other member of the committee wish to speak? Any member of the council wish to speak? Councilwoman Travis.
Yes, my question would be, what about the business owner that doesn't even know the cart is missing? I mean, I don't know if they count every cart every night of the week. I have seen carts that were, I'm sure it could probably be kids that have done it, but ended up maybe in a little pond or a little water, area near some of the businesses. And the cart was in the body of water. But if the business owner doesn't even know that the cart's there, I mean, they're going to get penalized, and they're supposed to be counting them every night.
So you're exactly right. So let's say a company's cart is left out wherever it ends up in Pontiac Park, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And DPW or just a member of the public finds out and contacts the entity. They still have another 24 hours to get that cart before any penalty kicks in. Because I don't want people getting penalized willy-nilly. I want people who don't bother to take care of their property for once they know about it. Those are the people who should be penalized. I don't think the average business should be.
Good. Okay. Well, that makes sense. Thank you.
Solicitor Walsh.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee and the council, I just wanted to update my prior guidance, given a rereading of the full set of changes made to Rule 17. And while the final sentence does leave out some unclarity about to which body we are speaking of when it comes to waiving of it, the earlier rules does include changes that add the chair of the committee specifically, and in the case of committees. So the guidance as to committees being able to waive this rule to facilitate that conversation would be in order. Just wanted to clarify that under the revised Rule 17, as well as the changes to Rule 39.
I'll take validation wherever I can get it. Thanks. Anyone else from the council wish to speak? See none, any members of the public? I see at least one hand raised. Carlo Pizzatora, could you be allowed to speak, please?
Mr. Torre, you can unmute now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a former council member for many years, I believe this ordinance is completely unnecessary and just another burden on the back of our business people who pay much higher taxes than residential property. Plus they pay the inventory tax. Now you're putting another tax on a business. I believe it's completely unnecessary and unfair. And I agree with Councilman Lattiser. It is not a problem in Ward 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pizzatora, and thank you for your service previously on the council and on the sewer board, actually. Any other members of the public wish to speak? All right, seeing none. Jeremy, how does this sound for the amendment? And Attorney Pecchia, feel free to correct me if this doesn't sound right, given that you drafted this. For section 10-44, where it says card identification required, simply adding after the period, notwithstanding the prior sentence, businesses that have only one location within the city or multiple locations within the city, all owned by the same entity, need not provide such identification as long as the car is otherwise visibly marked or branded such that its ownership is clear.
I mean, I would wait for Councilman Rick's what his input is. I'm kind of having a hard time not seeing it in front of me. I guess that might be my own personal fault. I'm more of a visual person. I mean, it sounds okay, but I would really like to see it in writing within the context of everything else that's going on in the ordinance. And in the event that there is a possibility that we could even simplify it further, just to make it clear what the intent of the language is. I don't want to add, I just don't want to be unintentional with an addition. And I'm sure, you know, you have it written in front of you and it makes sense. I'm just having a hard time visualizing it. And I wouldn't want to kind of do something on the fly. But, you know, I would defer to what Councilman Ricks thinks as far as whether he thinks that's language, because at the end of the day, you know, you folks tell me what to draft. So I can only advise you as to, you know, if there's an unintended consequence or something like that. But I would defer to Councilman Ricks's thoughts, and then maybe we can continue that discussion from there.
Alrighty. I sent it to Councilman Ricks and yourself so that you have it at least on paper. Or on a
I would suggest, I think that the addition of the sentence in that section is a good idea. I like the start of the sentence. I would just have it end with, instead of its ownership is clear, instead of that clause, have it say its ownership may be easily identified from such markings or writing on the cart.
Oh, okay. So this is why I'm having a little bit of an issue, because, and these are both great suggestions, but I'm fearing that this is getting a little bit overcomplicated. So this is, you know, just going back to my point, you know, if this is the language that you want to move forward with, obviously that is your prerogative to do so. I'm just concerned that now we keep adding to language and it's not in front of everybody. It's not in front of the whole council. I mean, like I said, we can move forward with what you both have said on the record. I'm just, from a drafting perspective, fearing that it might be a little complicated. And we're trying to do a very simple thing. But that's just my feedback. So obviously would defer to whatever the will of the
Well, that makes sense. What we can do to make sure we can address most of that is basically between now and the council meeting, make sure the language is sent to everyone so that they can have it in front of them when it comes time for the full council to vote on it, should it get there. So that being the case, I'd move to amend, let's see, line 26 of this ordinance, specifically to add after the period, businesses that have only one location within the city or multiple locations within the city, all owned by the same entity, need not provide such identification as long as the car is otherwise visibly marked or branded such that its ownership may be readily identified or determined. Period.
Just be sure to have at the start of that sentence, notwithstanding the above or notwithstanding the foregoing, so that it's clear that the second sentence controls in those circumstances.
Good call. So I'll just repeat it all again for the sake of clarity. With that in mind, notwithstanding the foregoing, businesses that have only one location within the city or multiple locations within the city, all owned by the same entity, need not provide such identification as long as the car is otherwise visibly marked or branded such that its ownership may be readily identified. Period. So that's my motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor as far as the amendment?
Mr. Chair,
Aye.
I want discussion on the amendment.
So
Ah.
the ordinance is now amended. Any questions or comments from the committee regarding the amended proposed ordinance?
Let's see, point of order on the,
Mr. Chairman, I have requested.
Councilman Ricks has called a
on the
point of
amendment.
order that has priority over whatever you're saying.
so my point of order is that as this is an amendment, and therefore it's essentially similar to a new item, would that, under the council rules, entitle our colleagues to have additional comment?
So I think that's going to end up getting governed by me one way or another as the chair. So for Councilman Lattiser's sake, what I would say is anything new that you have to bring up regarding specifically the amendment, feel free. Otherwise, you're over time.
Well, I think the rule is clear, that this is, an amendment. It's a new item. And
Councilman Lattiser, to be
it allows
clear, I'm the
10
chair. I
minutes
get
of
to
discussion.
decide that, not you.
Well, that's fine. I think legal counsel would have a determining, say in that as well.
Sure. Solicitor Walsh.
Repeat the, sorry?
I'm asking Solicitor Walsh per your request.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just give me 1 second. I think as previously discussed, there's some, it's not specifically outlined as it relates to what it is. I would suggest that where the language of the rule states that an item can change or an item can be different. And in the case of an amendment, I would suggest that discussion on an amendment is a separate item, and that would open the floor accordingly for similar limitations. That would be my reading of the rule, and I believe the intent, but I defer to certainly the members of the council who drafted and were involved in those discussions as to what the intent would be here. But I think that changing an item makes it a different item for the purposes of discussion in the rule.
So I'm going to be honest, my intent was not to allow an additional 10 in that regard, but that's a debate for later on. Right now, we actually have the regular council meeting, so we're going to have to basically hit pause on this so the regular council meeting can convene.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We will convene at 7 o'clock, so the council members get a full 3 minutes to stretch your legs, and we will call the meeting at 7 o'clock, and then we will do a few items, and then we'll go back into the ordinance committee. Thank you.
Gary, I can't pronounce your last name. I apologize. You're unmuted. I just want to make sure you know.
Oh, okay. Convar.
Convar. All right. Thank you. And sorry.
Yep.
Council members, are we ready to begin? I believe I see everyone. Who am I missing? Well, I will start. All right, good evening, everyone. I call the April 19th, 2021 council meeting to order. What I'm about to read is how you can join us on the Zoom application. You can find all this information I'm about to read on our website as well. Just go to the City Council website on the City of Warwick webpage, go to the City Council, and you find the agenda with all this information on there. The following options are available to access this meeting. You may access or participate in the meeting using the Zoom application on a smart device or a PC via the web at zoom.us and clicking on Join a Meeting in the upper right hand of the page. The webinar this evening ID number is 978-8786-9794. Anyone wanting to participate via telephone only may call one of the following numbers. Again, all this information is on the City Council website this evening. Non-toll-free numbers. While most mobile phone carriers do not place an extra charge on customers for toll calls, it is up to you to check with your carrier concerning potential charges you would be responsible for. The first toll-free number this evening that you can try is 1-646-558-8656. The next number is 1-301-715-8592. The next number is 1-312-626-6799. The next number is 1-669-900-9182. The next number is 1-253-215-8782. And the next number is 1-346-248-7799. Again, all these numbers are also available on our website. You can also use toll-free numbers from anywhere in the United States. The first number is 1-877-853-5247. The next number is 1-888-788-0099. The next number is 1-833-548-0276. The next number is 1-833-548-0282. Please note, if you're experiencing trouble connecting via a toll-free number, please try the next number on the list. You will then punch in the webinar ID, which is 978-8786-9794 on your touchtone keypad. While everyone joining the meeting will be muted, if at the appropriate time during the proceedings you wish to ask a question, you may, if using a smartphone or PC, click on the raise your hand icon. The meeting moderator will then ask for the participant having raised their hand to be unmuted. After the question, answer, and further discussion, the participant will be muted again and will need to click on the raise hand icon or punch in *9 to ask another question. If phoning in, punch *9 on the touchtone keypad. The moderator will indicate when it is your turn to comment or ask a question. Again, all that information is on our website this evening and the City of Warwick webpage. Go to the City Council. At this time, I'm going to ask the clerk to call the roll.
Mr. McAllister,
Here.
Mr. Foley,
Here.
Mr. Gephardt,
Here.
Mr. Howe,
Here.
Mr. Lattiser,
Here.
Mr. McElroy,
Yeah.
Mr. Ricks,
Here.
Mr. Sinapi,
Double mute here.
Miss Travis.
Here.
9 present.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. At this time, I would like to ask President Pro Tem Donna Travis to introduce our special guest this evening, who will be leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilwoman Travis.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Tonight with us, we have Gary Conva. He's president of the FOPA, very active with the Citizens Police, and he's one of the CSOs for the City of Warwick. very active in the community, and I'm glad Gary can join us tonight, and he's from Ward 6, so very nice person.
Thank you. If I could lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gary, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Thank you very much for your service to our city and to our state. We really do appreciate it. And thank you, Councilwoman Travis, for inviting him this evening as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up on our agenda this evening is executive communications. There are none. Under general communications, I have two. First off, the state wants everybody to know that now anybody over the age of 16 is now eligible to receive the vaccine. And I was told that there are still hundreds of appointments available for tomorrow at the state-run pods at the Dunk. So if you are interested in getting the vaccine, there is a number of options available at the state-run pods, and there's one in Cranston and there's one in Providence. There's also other ones across the state that you can go on the Department of Health website to sign up. You can also look at CVS and Walgreens. So as of today, any individuals, residents of Rhode Island, if you are 16 and up, you are now eligible to receive the COVID-19 vaccine if you would like. So we want to make sure people are aware of that, and that there are still hundreds, I was told, appointments still available for tomorrow at the Dunk. The other note I'd like to mention is starting at the next meeting, we are going to be inviting boards and commissions to present to the City Council and to the residents of Warwick. And they're just going to give us an update on what they're working on. Earlier this year, I think we appointed 30 plus people to all these boards and commissions on one of our meetings. And we all agreed that it's important that we hear from these individuals about the great work that they're doing. So next week, or the next meeting, we are going to have the Historic Cemeteries Commission is going to present to us, and they're going to let us know about what they do, what they have been doing, and they're also going to let us know how we can help them, better serve the public. So this is a great opportunity. So if you are on a board or a commission for the city of Warwick, please reach out to your council person and let us know if you're interested in coming. For example, this Historic Cemeteries Commission, they did a cleanup this weekend at Brighton Cemetery right here in Apponaug. And they had over 35 people, and it was raining and it was cold, and we were there, and they did a cleanup. And these individuals do these cleanups across the city on their own time, Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings. And so we want to highlight the great work that they're doing and see how they can do that. So we look forward to hearing from them at the next meeting and hearing from all our boards and commissions going forward. Are there any other council members that have anything for general communications at this time? Okay, hearing none, we will now move on to the acceptance of the minutes. There are none. So we're going to go to public comment, Rule 41. After the general communications and prior to the consent calendar at each city council public hearing meeting, there shall be a 15-minute period during which citizens may comment about Warwick City government issues subject to the following stipulations. The total period of time for public comment shall be 15 minutes. Comments need to be brief in order to allow as many citizens as possible to participate. The topics for comment shall be issues directly affecting city government. City council members will not respond to questions during the public comment period. The public comments session will terminate at the expiration of 15 minutes. Waiver of this provision requires unanimous consent. At this time, Phil, are there any members of the public that would like to speak to the city council? If there are, please raise your hand.
Council President, we do not have anyone with their hand raised at this time. If you want to give them a few seconds more.
Yes, yep. We just want to let people know, if you're just tuning in now, we're at the public comment section. All right, here we go. I see a raised hand. Phil, if you want to identify them and
Mr. Pisatoro.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I'd like to comment on the PCO 3-21 about the shopping carts. I did it at the committee meeting, and I think this ordinance is completely unnecessary in the city and just a burden on the Warwick business. And the business has enough of problems as it is with taxes, inventory taxes, and higher property tax. And I don't think they need Big Brother leaning on them some more. I think it is completely unnecessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Do we have any other people that would like to speak during the public comment section? If you do, you would just put raise your hand icon.
There are none at this time, Council President.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, next up, we are going to go to the announcement of appointments. There are none. So at this time, we're going to pause the council meeting. We are now going to go back into committee meetings. So at this time, we have not completed our committees. So we're going to go back to the last committee that was open, which was the Ordinance Committee. So we are pausing the council meeting at this time. We are going to go back into committees. We will finish our work in the committees. Then we will come back to the full council meeting and we will start at number 2. All right. Thank you very much. And we'll see you in the Ordinance Committee.
All right, looks like the committee is all present. Lynn, are you good?
I'm all set. Thank you.
All right, so ordinance will resume at 7:14 p.m. So what I'm going to do is, to make sure we get the language perfect for when this goes before the full council, I'm going to withdraw my amendment, and instead I'm going to move favorable action with the intent to amend it before the full council. And so I need a second in order to be able to move it favorable action.
Second, and I'll just add that I think it was the other version of it from the language that I was, draft language I was reviewing.
I'm not sure I understand, but when we get to the full council, we can dish it out and figure it out.
Without the apostrophe.
Oh, okay. Now I understand. Thank you. So motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So next on the docket for the Ordinance Committee. This one's actually mine. PCO 5-21, ordinance in regards to the authority of the council regarding the addition, removal, or significant alteration of streetlights. This was put together at request of a member of the planning department. And if, for those who know, this is actually in our council rules right now. It was, I didn't add it in recently, it was already there. This is just basically to formalize it. So it's like the traffic signs. That being said, not going to move forward with it yet. I'm going to hold till the next meeting. So I'm going to move the hold until May 3rd.
Second.
Made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next is PCR 39-21, a resolution extending a commission to examine possible means of tax relief for Warwick property owners through tax exemptions and altering composition of the membership of the same commission. Councilman Ricks.
Hold to June 21st to allow us more time after the budget and further discussion with the administration.
All right, so move the hold till June 21st.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That appears to conclude ordinance at 7:17 p.m.
Next up this evening, we have the Public Safety Committee. This is Chairman Foley, Councilman Ricks, and Councilman McElroy, and we are in order to proceed.
Okay, I'm calling the meeting to order at 7:17. Acceptance of minutes, there are none. And item 1, PCR 95-20, resolution in regards to erecting stop signs on the secondary roadways of Grimshaw Place, Hackman Place, Worth Street, Crystal Drive, and Lockwood Street. Councilman Lattiser.
Please hold till May 3rd.
May 3rd.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I need a motion first, please.
I'm sorry. I need a motion to hold.
Move to hold to May 3rd.
Councilman Ricks, second. You're on mute, Councilman McElroy.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. That's the only items in front of us tonight, so I'm adjourning the meeting at 7:18.
Next up this evening is the Intergovernmental Committee. This is Chairman McElroy, Councilman Sinapi, and Councilman Foley. You are in order to proceed.
Okay, it is now 7:18 in the Council on Intergovernmental Stats. There are no acceptance of minutes. First order of business, item number 1, PCR 39-20, resolution in regards to a change to the Warwick City Council rules, Rule 30, docketed to allow that docketed business be heard at either the regular business or public hearing meetings of the city council. Councilman Lattiser.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Due to the illustrious changes that were approved at the previous meeting on these council rules, this has been incorporated into it, so there's no need for me to keep that there, so I would like to withdraw.
Do I hear a motion?
So is that a motion to move to the pending file? Is that what you're looking for?
No, I'm looking to withdraw it.
All right, so motion to withdraw. I requested the sponsor.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
It is now 7:20 and that concludes the Intergovernmental Committee agenda.
Next up this evening is the Appointments Committee. We have Chairman Gephardt, Councilman Ricks, and Councilman Sinapi, and you're in order to proceed.
All right, do we have everyone here? How's my audio, Councilman Sinapi?
Good so far.
Thank you. Okay, there are no minutes to accept, so we move on. I know that, and I apologize to all the appointees who have been on this agenda for the last several meetings, while the administration and all the lawyers worked to reconcile some ambiguity in the rules. I think we are beyond that, and this evening we are ready to move forward on several of the appointments that are before us. So first up will be appointments to the Sewer Authority, the first of which being Mr. Gary Jarvis. This is a reappointment, so Mr. Jarvis is not required to be with us this evening, but I will state for the record that Mr. Jarvis, we do have a signed request from the administration to reappoint Mr. Jarvis, and his resume is attached in everyone's packet. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee on Mr. Jarvis's appointment? Councilman Sinapi.
So just, I guess, a quick blurb. I often attended the Warwick sewer meetings. Mr. Jarvis did a great job, and he also often acted as chair, if I'm not mistaken. And he also happens to be a great contributing member of the Lions, the Greater Warwick Lions Club, as Donna well knows. And he's just an all-around, very personable individual. I've never actually heard someone be disagreeable with him, and I've never heard him ever raise his voice in anger, which is actually kind of surprising given all the settings I'm with him in. So he's a good guy. Definitely deserves reappointment.
Thank you for your comments, Councilman Sinapi. Any other members of the committee wish to speak? Okay, members of the council, I see Councilwoman Travis, Pro Tem Travis, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too support Gary Jarvis. I've known him for many, many years. He works very hard. He's very fair, and he's he does such good work on the sewer authority. I've been to many meetings and see how he participated before too, and I look forward to him continuing on the sewer board. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Foley.
I just want to voice my support also for this reappointment. Since I've been sworn in, or when I got elected back in November, I've reached out to Mr. Jarvis many times, and he answers the phone and answers my questions, and I appreciate that.
Okay, that's great to hear, Councilman. Anyone else wish to speak on Mr. Jarvis's appointment? Any comments from members of the public?
Not at this time, sir.
Councilman Lattiser, do you have a comment on Mr. Jarvis's appointment?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair. I will be supporting this appointment. I've known Gary Jarvis for a good amount of years now, and we've had many conversations regarding sewers. As you all know, this is of paramount importance to the people that I represent here in Ward 5. And as some of my colleagues have indicated, Gary always returns my calls, always responds back with an email. We may not always agree, but we certainly agree to respectfully disagree. I believe Gary is focused on improving the sewer authority and getting it to a place that we would all like to see it be, and I will be supporting his appointment.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay, we've heard from the committee, we've heard from the council. We did not have anyone from the public. So do I have a motion on Gary Jarvis's appointment to the Sewer Authority?
Move to confirm.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. All right. Moving along to the second item on the docket, which is Mr. John Justo, appointment to the Sewer Authority. On this one, I do have a memo from the mayor's office asking that this appointment be withdrawn. I believe there were some just personal life things happening for this particular member of the Sewer Authority, and he's going to go on to pursue other things. So, so number 2 will be removed. Do we need a motion on that, Solicitor?
Yes.
Okay, so can I have a motion to withdraw this appointment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving right along. Item number 3, also for the Sewer Authority. This is Peter Janite. And Mr. Janite, we have a request, the appointment form from the administration. And we also have the extensive resume of Mr. Janite. And I should add that this is a new appointment, and I do believe that Mr. Janite is here this evening. If any members have questions for him. So Phil, if you could just locate Mr. Janite and make sure that if there are any questions of him, that he has the ability to speak on those. So any questions from members of the committee? Oh, I see a raised hand. Councilman Snappy.
So just briefly, though, I think the very first sewer meeting I went to, either right when I got elected or before, Mr. Goodnight was serving as chair at that time. And in addition to actually getting to see how he worked and how he worked well with everyone else, on more than one occasion, he would stop me after the meeting and help explain things. He'd pretty much bring me up to speed, as he knew I was only just recently getting out of the council. He was very helpful, and honestly can't thank him enough, because it helped me get a grasp on things far sooner than I probably would have.
Anything else to add, Councilman?
Nope.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other members of the committee wish to say something on behalf of Mr. Janite? All right, members of the council, I see Councilman Lattiser.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say, once again, I will be supporting Mr. Janite for the appointment to the Sewer Authority. And I look forward to working with him going forward and bringing the sewers to fruition down in that Bayside area, where we have so many people and so much trouble over there on those sewers, with the costs and with especially getting them off those cesspools. And I believe Peter is very focused on doing that as cost effectively and as expeditiously as possible. And I look forward to being able to work with him to that end. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other members of the committee wish to say something? Okay. Sorry?
You mean council? You said committee.
I mean council. Any other members of the council? No? All right. Members of the public?
Yes, sir. Mr. Pastaro, excuse me. Go ahead and unmute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like you, council members, to know that I replaced Peter Janite on the Sewer Authority under the previous administration. I've known Peter over 50 years. He was great on the Sewer Authority, and I'm really happy to see him coming back on the Sewer Authority. He's one of the most knowledgeable persons I know, and I'd appreciate it if the council voted for him. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pizzatoro. Phil, if you wouldn't mind unmuting Mr. Janite, I just want to see if he has anything to add.
I have unmuted him. He's all set.
Okay.
Chairman,
Mr. Knight, just want to thank you. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. After you.
No, absolutely. Chairman, members of the council, thank you very much for this opportunity. I will just take a couple minutes. It's exciting to come back onto the sewer authority. Having spent 8 years on the sewer authority, just literally appointed a month before the floods, and then following it through into a transition of trying to bring us up to total speed in a responsible fashion, both financially and judicious within our operations to, as Councilman Lattice has said, get out and really effectuate getting sewers in the areas that are necessary was our paramount concern. The board, I will say, over the last decade has been a very, very impressive board. It saddens me to hear that Commissioner Justo will be coming off. I know he has other life challenges out there. He's recently retired, and I really wish him the best. But there was a case in point where that gentleman knew so much about finance that he was so helpful in what we did. He really didn't care about sewering because he was our finance guy that really put us back on track, trying to raise our renewal and replacement recovery fund and basically pay our bills, which we have done very responsibly. So, with that, thank you very much for the consideration. I'm very excited, certainly at the opportunity and the request of the mayor to go back on the board and just get some work done. We have a lot of work left to do. And as Councilman Lattice has said, we don't always see eye to eye. But the good thing is politically is that we address these issues diplomatically, not politically, and deal with the issues day by day so that we can move forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you for your service over the years on this commission and also the many other things that you've done in your impressive resume. Any other members of the public wish to speak?
Not at this time, sir.
Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the confirmation of Mr. Knight to the Sewer Authority?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Now to our fourth and final piece of business for the Appointments Committee this evening, Mr. Goodinson. So first, I think we owe an apology to Mr. Goodinson. I know he sat through several very extensive meetings at this point, and we weren't able to hear his appointment. And now here we are. The moment is upon us. So Mr. Scott Goodinson, this is a new appointment to the Sewer Authority. And again, we have the request from the administration, as well as a bio of Mr. Goodinson in front of us, included in all your packets. So any members of the committee have any questions or comments? Before I recognize anyone, I just are we aware if Mr. Goodinson is in the room, just so we can expedite things if there are any questions?
His name is not showing up. There are two phone numbers, though. I'm not sure, one ending in 088 and one ending in 8281. If he could...
if I may, is the phone number ending in 088.
Oh, okay.
Okay, great. Thank you, Councilman Ricks. So any questions or comments from members of the committee? Councilman Ricks.
Thank you. Scott Goodinson is a resident of Warwick, longtime resident of Ward 2. He's well known, not just in Ward 2, but across the city, especially having been before the city council many times, always giving candid information, always giving his knowledge and expertise whenever he's able to speak on the topic with knowledge, which when it comes to sewers is almost every single time. And certainly if he doesn't know the answer, then he simply says so and then finds that answer. He's someone who has been an active member of the community, someone that will represent us all well on the sewer board. And I would also add that I believe that he does also count as the minority party representation, having, I believe, after, excuse me, after being nominated originally by Mayor Picozzi, having then pardon me, frog in the throat. After having been nominated, when the issue of minority party representation came up, he so qualified, and then the chairman of the Republican Party here in Warwick certified him, so that also resolves the minority party representation issue on the sewer board. So for all of those reasons, as Mr. Goodinson is highly qualified, as he has, excuse me, exhibited all of the traits that we would want to see as a member of this board, from his expertise to the personal characteristics of being someone who is truthful, who is responsive, and as we all have seen, been willing to bear with us on the city council through these long evenings. And when I discussed that with him at one point, he actually said that he enjoys being present at these meetings and seeing the business get done here in the city that he lives and for a long time worked in as well. Although he no longer, I believe, per his resume, works in the city of Warwick. He is very familiar with the sewer department, having worked here for many years. With all that said, I would certainly yield my time to the rest of the members of the council and to Mr. Goodinson.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Snappi, anything? Okay, Council President McAllister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just want to show my full support for Scott. I've known him for a number of years. When I first got on the council, he was working at the Sewer Authority, gave me a tour of the plant all the way around. It's very impressive operation, and he had a key part in that. So I've also served on a board in the past with Scott. We were on the Patuxent River Authority board about 10 years ago together, pulling tires out of the river, fun stuff like that. So I think Scott is a great pick. He's worked at the Sewer Authority. He already knows the issues. He already knows the players. He's really going to hit the ground running. So I'm thrilled about this support. He's actually presented to the city council before, and then I think he made it one time and then retired. I won't take that personally, that after he presented to us, he decided to retire, but I'm glad he's going to continue to serve our city. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Council President. Councilman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'd like to say this directly to Mr. Goodinson. I do apologize to Mr. Goodinson, to Mr. Janite, and also to Mr. Jarvis, that this appointment process was delayed so long. I found it to be a little bit of appalling. I'm disappointed to hear that politics and political affiliation got involved when people are stepping up and willing to serve, and they're willing to take their expertise and experience to the city, serve the city, and the politics and the partisan politics gets involved. I am going to say this is not directed. This is for the whole topic as a whole, Mr. Chairman. That we kept hearing the term minority party, and I'm going to say on the record, as far as I'm concerned, the chairman of the party that brought this up doesn't even sit at the table. So it's not even a minority issue. It's not a city issue. It was something where it just seemed to be a little bit of airtime needed. And these people who are ready to serve the city to fill in that ego airtime had to wait 2 months to start their job and to keep this going when we are in the middle as a city of numerous infrastructure repairs. Desperately we need these people on this committee. and it was held up purely for partisan politics. I found it disgusting. And Mr. Goodison, you have my 100% support. I want to, thank you for stepping up. And I apologize that you had to wait so long to finally be appointed and do the job that you stepped up to do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. In fairness, the makeup of the sewer board is spelled out in the charter, so it was sort of unavoidable there. But I appreciate your impassioned remarks. Any other members of the council wish to say something? All right. Any members of the public? Perhaps we could hear from Mr. Goodinson.
Mr. Goodinson, you can hit *6 on your phone to unmute. Mr. Goodinson, if you hit *6 on your touchtone keypad on your phone, you should unmute. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, he seems to be having some challenges with being able to unmute at this time.
Okay, well, unless we hear in the next couple seconds or so, I think Mr. Goodinson's waited long enough for us to have a motion and a vote. So do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Second.
Sorry, second. Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, welcome Mr. Goodinson to the Sewer Authority. That is all the business before the Appointments Committee this evening. Yes, that's it. It is.
Lastly, this evening,
Something
we have the Public Properties, Land Use Committee and Community Affairs. This is Chairman Ricks, Councilman Foley, and Councilman Gephardt, and you're in order to proceed.
Thank you. I see everyone present. Let's see. The time is now 7:43 p.m. As to acceptance of minutes, there are none on this agenda. So first item, this committee comes to order at 7:43 p.m. First item, PCO 10-20. This is for first passage. It's not yet drafted. Sponsor is Councilman Sinapi. PCO 10-20, an ordinance relative to amendment of the Warwick zoning ordinance regulations for the installation of solar energy system. What's your pleasure as to a hold date?
We do May 17th, please.
Move to hold to May 17. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
I'm sorry, Councilman, I need a motion from someone, not from Councilman Sinapi. He's not on the committee.
I thought that I moved.
Who moved that?
I did.
All right, sorry.
It's okay. Let's see. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Held to May 17th. Second and final item on the agenda is PCR 37-21, resolution in regards to authorizing a lease renewal by and between the City of Warwick and the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, for an approximate 400 square foot lease of land owned by the City of Warwick located at 771 Post Road for the purposes of maintaining the existing low-level wind shear alert system, LLWAS. So this is mine. This is an item that a lease of city land located in Ward 2. And if anyone has driven by the Aldridge property, by the fire station over there, you may notice a tower over there. So without further ado, and maybe a little bit more, I will say that I talked to our planning department, specifically Mr. Geegan, in advance of this. Seems like seems to me that he did a fantastic job of negotiating this new lease. So with that, I'll turn over the mic to Dan Geegan of the Planning Department to discuss this in a little bit more detail.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Dan Geegan with the Planning Department, here to present simply a lease renewal request by the FAA for the purposes of the FAA to continue to maintain their LWAS system at 771 Post Road. An LWAS is basically, it's a ground-based weather station that's used by the FAA to detect sudden changes in wind velocity and direction. This low-level turbulence can present a risk to flight safety and therefore creates the need for the local system around the airport. The facility is existing. There's no new construction proposed. The lease does allow for as-needed equipment modifications within the lease area. Any future modifications would require proper building permits. Excuse me. Highlights of the proposed terms in the lease include an annual rent increasing from the current $7,200 a year to $18,000 annually. The proposed lease renewal also includes a 5% rent escalation every 5 years. The total revenue generated from the expired lease was $144,000. Total revenue at full term for the new lease calculates to $387,910. Representing a total increase of over $243,000. The continuation of the lease for the LWAS is not expected to impact future disposition of or reuse of the Aldrich property. It is expected that a new lot could be created to include both the fire station and the LWAS tower. After a thorough review of the proposal, finding no adverse impact related to the future use or reuse of the Aldrich property, finding that the project maintains an essential flight safety and public safety benefit, finding that the city is to receive a substantial increase in compensation, the department recommends that the proposed renewal request is worthy of consideration by the council.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
I'll also just add that because this sort of tower is required by the FAA to be in this general vicinity, which would most likely result in being somewhere in Ward 2. I can think of no better place to have this tower, if we must have this tower, than exactly where it is right now. It's been up there for decades. It really has become just part of the landscape that everyone is familiar with, as opposed to if we were to locate it anywhere else, it would be much more likely that it would be literally in someone's backyard or pretty close to in someone's backyard, as opposed to where it is now, where it's surrounded by trees and otherwise it's a fair distance from being in anyone's backyard, so to speak. So for all of those reasons, for the substantial increase in compensation to the city, which again, Dan Geegan and the planning department, the administration did a fantastic job negotiating that, as well as for the reasons of this is something that we must, as a city, accommodate the FAA and the airport and have this tower somewhere in this area. And I'm sure that all council members here can understand that if a brand new tower were to go up somewhere where it isn't already existing, somewhere where it would be much closer to people's houses, then it would be much more of an eyesore, much more of a nuisance to those folks who didn't move to their houses knowing that, oh yeah, there's a tower over there a quarter mile down the road, or a tenth of a mile down the road, as the case may be. So for all of those reasons, I am in support of this. And let's see, seeing as, well, first I'll just say, any questions from members of the committee? And seeing none, I'll open it up to members of the council, starting with the council president.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to really echo what you said. Dan had called me about this as well. I think they did a very good job negotiating. They came in with we'll give you a little bit. And Dan really stood firm. He's being modest, and he pushed back and got us a significant raise in what the FAA is going to be paying for the city for, as Councilman Chairman Ricks mentioned, a tower that is already there. It has been there for a number of years. So this is new revenue, additional revenue coming in on an asset that we've already have, that people have already kind of lived with. So I just wanted to thank Dan and the planning department for their work on this, and not taking that first offer from the federal government, pushing back and say, we got the airport here in Warwick. We need, the federal government to step up, and this is one way. So I appreciate that. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Council President. Councilman Lattiser.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also want to just kudos out to you, Chairman, for taking on these issues. And also to Dan, Planning Department, and everyone else involved. And Dan, thank you for the time that you spent with me and going over some of the questions that I had on this. And you and I had done a little math project with regards to the 400 square feet of space that you're dealing with here in comparison to an acre of land. I think that we need to put you on the negotiating team for any city property that we have, because the revenue stream you've generated over this particular time period for 400 square feet of space is the equivalent of about $1,960,000 for an acre of land. Great use of the land. I think it's still a very, very good deal for the airport corporation. And this is a perfect example of how things work out well when one applies fairness to an issue, both from the revenue side of the fence to the business side of the fence. Good job to all of you involved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see if there are no further members of the council who wish to comment. Do we have any questions or comments from members of the public?
Not at this time, sir.
Thank you. In that case, I would entertain a motion.
Motion for favorable action on PCR 37-21.
I'll second that.
Second.
Thank you. Councilman Gebhardt seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. There being no further business of the committee, we adjourn at 7:54 p.m.
That concludes committees. Back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Is the council ready to proceed, or does anybody need a break or anything? I'm seeing the thumbs up. Okay. So for people watching from home, we have now finished committees. We had already opened up the council meeting. We had did a couple of things. So now we are on number 2 on the agenda this evening. This is the appointments requiring confirmation. This went through the appointments committee. We did some sewer authority appointments. So first item, I will call on the appointments chair, Councilman Gebhardt.
On the first item, favorable action.
Okay, for action, Ward 1, Councilman Foley. You move favorable?
Yes.
Okay, Councilman Foley moves favorable, second by Councilwoman Travis. Councilman Gebhardt. Any questions on this appointment? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. Foley,
Yes.
Mr. Gebhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser,
Yes.
Mr. McElroy,
Yes.
Mr. Ricks,
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi,
Yes.
Ms. Travis.
Yes.
9 yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Jarvis is reappointed to the Sewer Authority. Next item, item number 2, Councilman Gephardt.
Item number 2, John Justo. This was withdrawn.
Okay, we'll do a voice vote on this. All in favor of the withdrawing, per the request of the mayor's office, Mr. Justo's appointment to the Sewer Authority? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the appointment has been withdrawn. Number 3, Mr. Gephardt.
Number 3 recommendation was favorable action.
Okay, for action, Ward 5, Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd move favorable action on the appointment of Peter Genoit to the Sewer Authority.
The councilman moves favorable action, second by Councilwoman Travis and Councilman Gephardt, Councilman Foley, Councilman McElroy. Any questions on this appointment? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. Foley,
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yeah.
Mr. Lattiser,
Yes.
Mr. McElroy,
yes,
Mr. Ricks,
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi,
Yes.
Ms. Travis.
Yes.
9 yes.
Thank you very much. The appointment is confirmed. Next up, item number 4, Councilman Gephardt.
Recommendation was favorable action.
For action, award to Councilman Ricks.
Move favorable action.
Councilman moves favorable action, second by Councilwoman Travis. Councilman Gephardt. Any questions on the appointment of Mr. Goodson? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. Foley,
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser,
Yes.
Mr. McElroy,
yes,
Mr. Ricks,
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi,
Yes.
Ms. Travis.
Yes.
9 yes.
Thank you very much. The motion passes. Mr. Goodson is now on the Sewer Authority. Next up is item number 3, which is we're moving to the consent calendar. First up is PCR 59-21, a resolution relative to bids. Committee report, finance.
Move favorable action.
For action, you move favorable, Mr. Howe?
Yes. Yes,
And,
Mr.
do I
President.
have a second for favorable action? Second by Councilman Gephardt and Councilman Foley. All right, please proceed, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. For favorable action, item number 1, 2021-066, city clerk advertising. Item number 2, 2021-194, harbor master boat maintenance. Item number 4, 2022-009, spring repairs related work. Item number 5, 2022-010, high density polypropylene pipe. Item number 7, 2021-337 Solar Wind Network Management Software. Item number 8, 2021-338 Solar Wind Additional Polling Engine. Item number 9, 2021-328 Action Work Group Licenses. Item number 10, 2021-339 Tyler Cashiering Module. Item number 11, 2021-340 Annual Shield Suite Software. Item number 12, 2021-342 C-Click Fix software licenses, and item number 13, 2022-022 disposable of solid wastes and recyclables.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Do we have any questions on this consent calendar? Just those items that were listed at this time that were not asked during the Finance Committee meeting earlier this evening? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. Foley,
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser,
Councilman, you're muted.
Yes. Sorry.
Mr. McElroy,
yes,
Mr. Ricks,
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi,
Yes.
Ms. Travis.
Yes.
9 yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Consent calendar passes. Mr. Chairman, I believe that 2 items have been removed from the consent calendar. Item number 1.
Yes, Mr. President. Item number 1 was formerly item number 3, bid 2021-295. Engine is now PCR 62-21. Engineering survey support services for improvements to Oakland Beach Playground and Splash Pad. That was amended from $45,000 ask to a $65,000 ask.
Okay, so you're going to move it favorable as amended?
Move it-
Favorable with that amendment?
Yes, Mr. President, we move favorable.
Okay, do I have a second on that? Second by Councilman Lattiser, Councilman Gephardt. Any questions on the amendment? Again, we are increasing the spending authority from $45,000 to $65,000. Okay, hearing none, the clerk will call the roll on the amendment.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. Foley,
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser,
Yes.
Mr. McElroy,
yes,
Mr. Ricks,
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi,
Yes.
Ms. Travis.
Yes.
9 yes to amend.
Thank you. The amendment passes. Councilman Howe, will you move the amendment?
Move as amended.
Favorable as amended?
Correction, favorable PCR 62-21 as amended.
Okay, second by Councilman Foley. Councilman Lattiser. Any questions on the amendment? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. Foley,
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser,
Yes.
Mr. McElroy,
yes,
Mr. Ricks,
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi,
Yes.
Ms. Travis.
Yes.
9 yes as amended, motion passes.
Thank you very much. PCR 62-21 passes. Next up, that was removed from the consent calendar, Chairman Howe, and I believe there is a member that is going to recuse on this. Correct?
Yes, Mr. President. Former item number and bid number 2022-011 minor roof repairs at various owned buildings is now PCR 61-21. It was given a PCR for 2 reasons, Mr. President. 1, to correctly put in the name of the company to ensure that it was done correctly, and 2, for a recusal.
Okay, thank you very much. Will you make a motion and with the amendments, please?
Move
First,
favorable action with amendment.
Okay, do I have a second before we hear the amendment? Second by Councilman Gephardt and Councilman Foley. Mr. Howe.
We changed the legal name as written in the bid to the second company for the bid as Eagle Rivet Roof Services Corporation, and there will be an abstention from this vote.
Okay, any questions on the amendment? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll on the amendment, which is that name change, just clarifying.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. Foley,
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser,
Recuse.
Mr. McElroy,
yes,
Mr. Ricks,
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi,
Yes.
Ms. Travis.
Yes.
8 yes, 1 abstention.
Thank you. The amendment passes. Councilman Howe, will you move the amendment, please?
Move favorable action PCR 61-21 as amended.
Second by Councilman Gephardt, Councilman Foley. Any questions on the amendment? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. Foley,
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser,
Recuse.
Mr. McElroy,
yes,
Mr. Ricks,
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi,
Yes.
Ms. Travis.
Yes.
8 yes, 1 abstention.
Thank you very much. The motion passes. Now we are moving to the unfinished business on the calendar. First up is PCO 17-19, ordinance relative to seniors and veteran exemptions. Committee report, Finance.
Hold until June 21st.
Hold to June 21st. Next up is PCO 9-20, an ordinance in regards to amending Chapter 40-30, PCO 8-18, smoking prohibited in public schools and on school grounds. First passage, not drafted, committee report, ordinance.
Hold till June 21st at the request of the sponsor.
Hold to June 21st. Next up is number 3 this evening, PCO 10-20, an ordinance relative to the amendment of the Warwick zoning ordinance relative to the installation of solar energy systems. First passage, not drafted, committee report, land use.
Hold to May 17th.
Hold to May 17th. Number 4 this evening, PCO 23-20, an ordinance in regards to omnibus reforms, updates, and amendments to Chapter 4 of the Warwick Code of Ordinance entitled Animals and Fowl. First passage, not drafted, committee report, ordinance.
Hold to June 21st at the request of the sponsor.
Hold to June 21st. Number 5 this evening is PCO 3-21, an ordinance in regards to ensuring shopping carts remain on their original property. Committee report, ordinance.
Committee recommended favorable action.
For action, Councilman Sinapi.
So first, I'm going to move to amend.
I just move it favorable first and we'll get a
Favorable
second.
action as recommended.
Okay, do we have a second on that? For favorable.
Second for the discussion.
Okay, second by Councilman Ricks. Councilman Sinapi.
So I'm going to move to amend per the language that was sent to everybody and then I read off before. Sans 1 apostrophe that Jeremy caught at the end. And I'll pull it up so I'll read it into the record. That way there's no ambiguity. So inserted on page 2, line 36 after the period, notwithstanding the foregoing, comma, businesses that have only one location within the city or multiple locations within the city, all owned by the same entity, need not provide such identification as long as the cart is otherwise visibly marked or branded such that its ownership may be readily identified or determined, period. And the rogue apostrophe in question was the one that was attached to the its in the last sentence. So that apostrophe will not be present in said amendment. So that is my amendment.
Okay, the amendment has been moved and it's been seconded. Any questions on the amendment? Mr. Foley.
My question is, the solicitor, during the committee hearing, you voiced some concern about the new language. Do you still have that concern that you had some time to look it over?
Thank you for that, Councilman. Yeah, so just to clarify my concern in committee, so as you guys know, I'm the attorney in the office who principally does the legislative drafting. And so just based on my experience, when I'm drafting things, my personal preference is to make things simpler and more clear, especially from the perspective of when you might have to defend something actually in a court of law, if that makes sense. But based on the language now that I have in front of me, it does make sense. And I think it serves the purpose that Councilman Ricks and Sinapi are looking for it to serve. So I appreciate the opportunity to clarify on my earlier opinions. And I don't want what I said earlier to be or to be perceived as a prohibition of council members making amendments on the floor. You are well within your purview to do that. I would just always recommend, as your legal counsel, and we make recommendations, to just be as succinct and as clear as possible, because clear language is only going to benefit the council in the end. So I appreciate Councilman Foley allowing me to opine on my earlier statements.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Foley?
I'm good now. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the council on the amendment? No? Okay, hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. Foley,
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser,
Yes.
Mr. McElroy,
Yes.
Mr. Ricks,
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi,
Yes.
Ms. Travis.
Councilwoman, you're on mute.
Ms. Travis,
I'm sorry, yes.
9 yes.
Okay, the amendment passes. Councilman Sinapi.
So everything I said in committee still stands, and I really like Councilman Ricks's clarification. I think that'll tighten it up. Because I'm going to be honest, I had that concern and I couldn't think of something. So I'm glad Councilman Ricks could. But any questions, happy to address them as best I can.
Do you want to move the amendment?
Move favorable action on the motion as amended, or the ordinance as amended.
It's been moved favorable, second by Councilman Foley. Any questions from members of the council? Councilman Lattiser.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So my first question is, has the police department been consulted with regards to this ordinance? Either the colonel, the commander, or any other officer in the police department?
Is that to the author of the bill?
Sure.
Councilman Sinapi?
Sure.
Councilman Sinapi.
Not to my knowledge, though I know the administration reviews all the bills, and if they have concerns, they reach out, hence why the stoplight bill is tabled. So I'm aware of the fact that they reviewed the bills, and we're not concerned in regards to needing to have it tabled. The good news is that this, pardon? Oh, sorry. The good news is that it wasn't you. Lynn had made a sound. I wanted to make sure I wasn't interrupting her.
I apologize. I coughed and I apologize.
No worries. The good news is that this bill, if you notice, has a little time gap where it does not go into effect. So for instance, if there's some sort of issue with it, the administration is well within its rights to delay implementing it, and we're well within our rights to change it or fix it. Or if the police and the administration decide they hate it, we're in our rights to get rid of it.
So it seems interesting to me that we are, seems to be setting up a pattern here that, well, you know what, let's pass it, because if we don't like it, or someone else doesn't like it, we can always come back and we can change it. It's interesting to me how this applies when it's convenient and doesn't apply when it's not convenient. This particular ordinance, if it should pass, is going to put a significant burden on the police department for enforcing it. We spoke about it in committee, and now we have to have a cop who's going to be chasing down the cots, and who's going to have to identify whether or not who belongs to what. And then we have to start a process of implementing the penalties that may occur. This ordinance is going to put a significant burden, in my opinion, or could put a burden on the police department, and no one has reached out to the police department for their opinion. No one. And to say that one relies on someone else to form that opinion, be it pro or con, or to object or support, that doesn't make any sense to me. Is anyone from the police department in attendance on this meeting this evening? Because I think it's paramount that we hear from the police department. Is this enforceable? Is it something that they're going to be able to do? Is it going to be a burden? How are they going to enforce it? How are they going to serve the notices? How are they going to issue violations tickets? Who's going to be responsible for going around to all of these business entities to ensure that the locks are locked, the key is out of the lock, the combination is changed, one basket hasn't been missed? How are they going to lock all of these things up? Is there a certain cable that's required? This bill is terribly onerous on the businesses who have to have a cot of some type in order to conduct their business. We've just gotten through probably one of the worst economic conditions that we have seen since the Great Recession. We've gone through this COVID to a degree, we're still in it. Businesses are still struggling and recovering, but yet we want to further inundate them with an additional, what I'm going to refer to as an illegal tax, a further burden, financial burden, and a logistical nightmare for them to keep up with. there is no way, I don't care what you put on there for amendments, there's no way that I'm gonna vote for this item right here, which I would just simply relate to as an anti-business ordinance. It is it's just crazy. That's all I got to say, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Lattiser. Councilman Ricks.
As I see this ordinance, it's much more of a responsive sort of situation where if someone calls in, there's a shopping cart in the street, there's a shopping cart in the park, there's a shopping cart that's somewhere down the road or in a ditch, then someone from the city is able to respond, and then the situation can be addressed appropriately. And I don't see this as anti-business. The owner of the shopping cart wants it back. It's a valuable asset. And so the owner is being given the 24 hours to go get it. It's, which really they should. I have seen situations with one business in Ward 2, and I'm not going to call out specifically which business it is, but I'm aware of multiple incidents where customers or other folks took the shopping carts and they ended up down the road and by where a brook is, and then they were left there. A constituent told me about this on multiple instances, multiple occasions, and so the constituent took it upon themselves to be contacting the store, and lo and behold, the store doesn't go and retrieve its carts. So the constituent ended up going and doing it themselves. I'm sure that the vast majority of businesses out there would simply comply. They would go get their valuable asset back, and this wouldn't be an issue. But we also don't want a situation where these carts are just going everywhere and not being properly retrieved. I'll also say that I don't see this as a situation where anyone from the city would regularly be going and looking at whether carts are properly locked and so on. It's a matter of, okay, if it happens where carts are being stolen and then they're ending up where they shouldn't be, or they're not being retrieved, then this also gives a mechanism where, well, if the carts keep getting stolen, they really should be locked. In fact, even without someone going and starting to steal these carts, they should be locked. So, I don't have a problem with any of those in particular. I think that on balance, this is a good ordinance designed to solve a problem. Let's see. So for those reasons, especially with the amendment to make this easier for businesses to comply, I would be in favor. And I'll also add that because this is an ordinance, if it did not take 2 passages to go through, then I would be most comfortable with holding this matter for the upcoming meeting, which I believe is, May 3rd. So if we did not require as a council second passage on this ordinance, then I would certainly make a motion myself to hold it to May 3rd until the police department, DPW, we make sure as a council that the people who would be enforcing this are understanding this. They don't have feedback that we should be including, we're responding to and addressing appropriately. But since this requires a second passage anyway, then certainly between now and then, so long as the sponsor is comfortable doing so, if the sponsor can agree to contacting the police department and DPW, making sure that they don't have any questions, concerns, any amendments that are needed, then at this time I would be in favor of the first passage. And then, of course, if any amendments are needed, then we can certainly address that before second passage, as well as, just making sure that everything is in order. On the other hand, why I don't see a need to hold it at this time is because the terms all look fine at this time. And if it turns out that none of those concerns are present, then there's no reason why we shouldn't proceed with the first passage at this time. And by the way, I should also add that my interpretation when I see the 30 calendar days after its passage would be not from today, not even from the time that the city council, should it choose to vote on the second passage, favorable action as it currently stands, but effectively from the date that either the mayor would sign it, or such time that it goes into effect without his signature, for the sake of completeness. So 30 days from that future date that businesses would have to, and for that matter, now that I'm recalling this, it would also be an additional period of time for the publication of the ordinance too, for the businesses to be put on notice about the change that might be needed with the identification of their carts, which really won't apply to most businesses, because most of these large chains, they're not franchises, they're corporate stores. And so it falls under one owner. Or the stores that only have one location in Warwick, then by design, they won't have to make any changes to the identifications on their carts. But for those few and far between, if any, that would need to make those changes to the identification, then we're not looking at 30 days from today. We're looking at quite a bit more than 30 days because of the second passage, the signing, and then the advertising requirements before the 30-day effective date on the final page, section line 39, section 2, would even take effect.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions from members of the council? No, we do have, okay, anybody else that hasn't spoken yet, would they like to speak? No? Okay, Councilman Lattiser, did you put your hand down?
I did.
Okay. All right, hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. Foley,
Yes.
Mr. Gebhardt,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser,
No.
Mr. McElroy,
Yes.
Mr. Ricks,
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi,
Yes.
Ms. Travis. Ms.
Councilman,
Travis,
you're muted.
And yes,
8 yes, 1 no, first passage.
Thank you. First passage of PCO 3-21 is favorable action. Thank you. Number 6 this evening is PCO 5-21, ordinance in regards to authority of the council regarding the addition, removal, or significant alteration of streetlights. Committee report ordinance.
Hold till May 3rd, please.
Hold till May 3rd. Sorry about that. Number 7 this evening, PCR 195-19, a resolution relative to creating a commission to study health insurance benefits. Committee report finance.
Hold July 19.
Hold till July 19. Number 8 this evening, PCR 39-20, resolution in regards to a change to the Warwick Council rules. Rule 30, docketing to allow docketed businesses to be heard at either regular business or public hearing meetings of the city council. Committee report intergovernmental.
Withdrawn.
Okay, we'll do a voice vote on the recommendation to withdraw PCR 39-20. All those in favor of withdrawal, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion to withdraw passes.
Council President, if I may, I see that a member of the public has their hand raised.
I'm sorry, we're in the full council meeting now. The public comment section is, we do that during committees. If the attorneys can just clarify that for members of the public, that the opportunity to speak is during committees when these come up. We are in the full council meeting now.
Yes, that's correct, Council President. And you also did already call for the public speaking portion of the meeting. I believe it was around 7:10, maybe. So that has closed, unless, of course, the council would like to suspend the rules. That's always within your prerogative to do so.
Thank you very much. And people should be aware they can contact their council people at any time, before meetings, after meetings, with any questions. But the opportunity to speak is always available during committees and during public comment section. Thank you very much. Next up is PCR 95-20, a resolution in regards to erecting stop signs on the secondary roadway of Crimshaw Place, Hackman Place, Worth Street, Crystal Drive, and Lockwood Street. This is committee report, public safety.
Hold till May 3rd.
Hold till May 3rd. Number 10 this evening is PCR 37-21, a resolution in regards to authorizing a lease renewal by and between the City of Warwick and the FAA for an approximate 400 square foot lease of land owned by the City of Warwick located at 771 Post Road for the purposes of maintaining existing low-level wind shear alert system. This is committee report, public properties.
Recommend favorable action.
For action, Councilman Ricks.
Move favorable action.
Councilman moves a favorable, second by Councilman Foley, Councilman Lattiser, Councilman Howe, Councilwoman Travis. Any questions on this that wasn't brought up during committee? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. Foley,
Yes.
Mr. Gebhardt,
Yeah.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser,
Yes.
Mr. McElroy,
yes,
Mr. Ricks,
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi,
Yes.
Ms. Travis.
Yes.
9 yes, motion passes.
Thank you. The motion passes. Number 11 this evening is PCR 39-21, a resolution extending a commission to examine possible means of tax relief for the Warwick City property owners through tax exemptions and et cetera. Committee report ordinance.
Hold to June 21st, please.
Hold to June 21st. Now we're going to move on to unanimous consent portion of the agenda this evening. First up is PCR 58-21, a resolution in support of community investment grant submitted by the City of Warwick to Congressman Jim Langevin for the Connecticut Lighthouse Restoration Project. Councilman McElroy.
I move favorable action.
Councilman McElroy moves favorable. Do we have a second? Second by Councilman Foley, Councilman Gebhardt, Councilman Ricks, Councilman Howe, Councilman Ladder, sir. Councilman McElroy, would you like to speak on this before we take a vote?
Sure. This is in response to our the mayor and the administration trying to get a community federal grant that would help the what do you call it, the Connecticut Point Lighthouse. It is obviously for the safety of the maritime in the area, and I move passage.
Thank you very much. And I also spoke to the mayor about this and would like to be added on as a co-sponsor. The congressman asked the mayor and the council to find a shovel-ready project, something that they could do. They have specific guidelines on some earmarks. They don't call them earmarks anymore, but I think they're community development opportunities, and the Connecticut Lighthouse restoration fit right into the criteria. And Councilman McElroy and then the mayor thought this would be a good opportunity to take advantage of. So I support sending this to Congressman Langevin as well. Any additional questions?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Howe.
thank you. With Councilman's permission, I'd like to also be added as a sponsor.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else would like to be added as a co-sponsor? Councilman Ricks would. Thank you. Solicitor, do you have a question?
No, actually, I noticed there were a couple errors in the draft that I'd just like to point out to the body. And I don't know if we would need to move to amend or if someone would be comfortable making a motion to that effect. Our office didn't draft this, so I didn't see this, but the title of the header, Providence Plantations needs to be taken out. That's no longer the name of the state. Formatting, per the council rules, all of the formatting of the legislation, the numbers need to be on the side. So I would suggest that be added. And then I believe the third error that I noticed was that at the bottom, where it said committee, it said unanimous consent dead with a D at the end, an ED. So I would suggest that be modified. And with the suggestion of the additional sponsors, I'd be happy to take care of that for our drafting deadline tomorrow. I just need somebody to send me a copy. So I'm not sure if Councilman McElroy could connect me with that person. I'd be happy to make those adjustments if that's the will of the body.
Thank you very much, Kyle. I think Lynn has started to address this. So if you could get in touch with her, Lynn Nebraska, the city clerk.
I'll follow, send the legislation over tonight, Kyla.
Thank you so much, Lynn. I appreciate it.
Yep, and when I send the legislation over to have it signed, I take the numbering off it. I usually leave it there just in case, for amendment wise.
Understood. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you very much. So let's make a motion. I'll entertain a motion to clear up that language that the solicitor said. Councilman McElroy, would you like to make that motion?
Yes. Kyla, could you put that in amendment you would like to have in the language?
So I guess a sample motion would be move to amend to strike state of Rhode Island. So it would be to strike and Providence Plantations from the header. And it would also be to strike the letters ED after unanimous consent in the last line of the legislation.
Okay. So moved. Do we have a second to that? Second by Councilman Foley, Councilman Gephardt, Councilman Howe. Any questions on the amendment? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll on the amendment.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. Foley, Mr. Gephardt,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser,
Yes.
Mr. McElroy,
Yes.
Mr. Ricks,
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi,
Yes.
Ms. Travis.
Yes.
9 yes to amend.
Thank you. The amendment passes. And before we do the amendment, I just want to give everyone else a chance because I think I cut some people off when they were asking to be co-signers. So Councilman Sinapi had his hand up. Anybody else? Councilman Foley, Councilman Gephardt. Thank you very much. Okay, Councilwoman Travis. Just want to make sure everyone had an opportunity. All right. Any other questions on the amendment? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll as amended for favorable action.
Mr. President, I have a question.
Okay.
Over there. So I'm just out of curiosity. I know it was stated that our council solicitors didn't draft this resolution. I'm curious as to who did draft it.
I believe it came from the administration, but I will.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I did see your hand up. I minimized.
That's all
it.
right. Mr. Chairman, I will sign on as a co-sponsor.
Okay. I believe that is everyone. Okay, so we have moved it as amended for favorable. So the clerk will call the roll for favorable action as amended.
I'm just looking to see if I had the motion for as amended. Was it moved as amended?
It was.
Was, okay, just wanted to clarify.
Thank
So
you.
that- Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. Foley,
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser,
Yes.
Mr. McElroy,
Yes.
Mr. Ricks,
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi,
Yes.
Ms. Travis,
Yes.
9 yeses amended.
Thank you. The motion passes, and thank you very much to the clerk and the solicitor for handling all the logistics on that one for us. Next up, under unanimous consent, is PCR 60-21, a resolution in regards to erecting a stop sign on Madison Street facing the north eastbound traffic. This is Councilman Foley.
Yes, this would have been docketed the correct way had I not had to excuse myself from the last council meeting because of the side effects from my second COVID shot. I asked my fellow council people to bear with me and pass this via unanimous consent. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll take that as a motion for favorable action.
Motion for favorable action.
Okay, do we have a second? Second by Councilman Gephardt, Councilman Ricks, Councilman McElroy. Any questions on this motion?
Just have one quick one.
Councilman Sinapi.
I assume it's backed up by a traffic study?
Yes, it was, sir.
Seemed like a safe bet. That's it.
Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll on PCR 60-21 for favorable action.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. Foley,
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt,
Yes.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser,
Yes.
Mr. McElroy,
Yes.
Mr. Ricks,
Yes.
Mr. Sinapi,
Yes.
Ms. Travis,
Yes.
9 yes, motion passes.
Thank you. The motion passes. Councilman Foley.
Just want to thank you all for doing that. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Foley. Okay, do we have anything for unanimous consent? Councilman Foley, Ward 1.
No.
Ward 2.
Pass.
Ward 3.
Pass.
Ward 4.
Pass.
Ward 5.
Pass.
Ward 6.
Pass.
Ward 7 passes. Ward 8.
Pass.
And Ward 9.
Pass.
Okay, with that, Councilwoman Travis, will you move us to the docket session?
If there be no further business of this honorable body, I move to a docket session.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we have now into the docket section. Ward 1, do you have anything to docket?
No.
Ward 2.
Pass.
Ward 3.
Pass.
Ward 4.
Pass.
Ward 5.
Pass.
Ward 6.
Pass.
Ward 7. I thought I did, but sorry. Pass. Ward 8.
Just one resolution in support of legislation allowing the city of Warwick to enact an ordinance allowing for the impoundment and destruction of illegal recreational vehicles and prohibit the sale of gasoline to illegal recreational vehicles.
Okay, we'll put that in the ordinance committee.
If I may be added as a co-sponsor.
If the sponsor would like that, with your permission, Councilman Sinapi?
Of course.
And Councilwoman Travis, same?
Yes, please.
And Councilman McElroy is raising his hand as well. Ward 9, anything to docket?
Not tonight, sir. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much this evening. That will conclude all the work on the agenda this evening for the Warwick City Council. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. Good night.
Not everybody.
Councilman Sinapi?
Yeah.
This is Phil. I just wanted to mention to you that, did you get my email about the Chapter 4 meeting?
Yep.
You could, just let me know what an acceptable date would be, and I'll take care of that for you.